I can also do that. I'm gonna start recording as well.
Yeah, why don't you do that? So last week we had some surprise visitors, and it got really cool really fast. So
And
we
then
had
this week you get us.
Oh wow, y'all went downhill fast.
no, we're trying to keep the momentum and keep going up and get better and better. That's why we invited you all. So.
Well, we appreciate the invite. We
Yes.
were doing a happy hour before we jumped on here. So thank you guys for the opportunity to hang out with you, man. I love the K&ILers, man.
No problem. Anytime. So we thought it was pertinent that tomorrow's National Learn to Homebrew Day, and there's a big push to do virtual homebrewing all across the nation, and we thought you guys might want to take advantage of that and kind of talk to some homebrewers. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I mean, I don't really know how much I can add with David Rogers in the room.
Yeah. I know. I mean, hey, is that a fake backdrop? Oh no, that's a real brewery in his garage.
yeah. We got him.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah, I'm actually in a brewery. This is somebody who actually did this, and then Dave's like, and.
Yeah,
David's crazy.
Great beer. I love David's beer.
Yeah. Well, let's stop buttering him up and let's talk about home brewing, because I actually had to call Gary Glass from the Brewers Association. Name drop for that guy.
I was about to say, did you just drop a name?
Yeah, American Homebrewers Association. I said, hey man, I'm struggling with this, so I don't know if I want to. Can we give away the official? James,
yes.
Are you okay? Fine. All right, the official What's on Tap Radio fun fact for that you'll hear on Sunday. This little sneak peek here is I was trying to figure it out. Why is it that we had to legalize homebrewing in 1978? Actually, went into effect in signed in 1979, went into effect in 1980. But it was debated in 1978. I was trying to understand why. It's like, wait a minute. When we ended Prohibition in 1933, why is it that homebrewing wasn't just allowed? In fact, in 1933, when Prohibition ended, you could vent, you could make wine at home, but you couldn't brew beer. And I was like, what the heck? Why? It makes no sense. And I looked everywhere. I mean, I scoured. I was like a Wikipedia just in there, and I was like, man, Wikipedia, they're always right. I'm like, okay, they didn't have it. So now I had to go actually search a credible source. And I started looking at homebrew forums, and I mean, nobody had it. Nobody knows the answer. So I said, all right, time to go Boulder, Colorado, go hit up our buddy Gary Glass, director of the American Homebrewers Association. And I said, let's see if we can get an answer. And right before he got back to me, I said, I figured it out. They were worried that they were going to use the grains to make beer to make moonshine. And that's why they didn't let him have it, because with what do they say? With what is it? With grapes you get wine, not shine. I'm like, oh, that's clever. Yeah. And so I thought, all right, that makes a lot of sense. But all right, that's the deal. Well, Gary says, no, that's not true. That's what they argued in 1978 in the federal representation, and they said why they didn't want to allow it. And I said, okay, so what's the real reason? The real reason is, believe it or not, brace yourself, your government is lazy. That's the real reason. Because prior to Prohibition going into effect, there were limits on how much wine you could actually produce as a citizen here in the country, but there were no limits on how much beer you could homebrew. So when Prohibition was lifted, they just took the old limits of wine and moved it forward into 1933 and just said, yeah, just keep the limits the same. Since there were no limits with beer, it would have required them to write new legislation, and they were like, we'll get around to it later. Screw it. It took 46 years to be able to legislate it. And that's your official What's on Tap Radio fun fact coming up on Sunday. Don't tell anybody, though.
Will not tell anybody, but that's very interesting.
I was like, how is it that you can make wine for 46 years and you can't make homebrew? Why?
So Gary Glass knew all this?
He knew the answer. Dude. Like that. He got back to me like right away.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, oh yeah. And he's like, Rage Against the Coronavirus, COVID-19, you got nothing on me. I got to answer this question.
Well, I bet people were still doing it regardless.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it was illegal or not, just to, like some people distill,
Well, DeFalco's was open before they even put it into
1972.
law.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
They were selling it in cereal boxes.
Yeah. Hey, I was just thinking about this here for a second. A couple of the guys from the Zithophile Society of North America just rolled in to get some beer to go at Brazos Valley. I thought, to get the Cane Island Nailers and the Zithophile Society together for a big old homebrew share would be pretty cool when this whole social distancing thing gets over. Let them bring some beer from Brenham and come down to Katy, meet up with y'all, and vice versa. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool. That would
I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm waving to them over there. Sorry.
I don't think that the AHA conference is going to take place this year because Nashville is still a mess.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, you're right on that. I don't even think that the Great American Beer Festival will be going on either.
The biggest reason to cancel that, as far as I'm concerned, GABF, is that not necessarily the whole coronavirus, social distancing, big crowd, and all that. I think in order for the Brewers Association to make that, they need breweries to participate, and with breweries getting literally just junk punched right now, they're not gonna buy flights, hotels, send their staff out there. It's all about survival right now.
When was the AH conference supposed to happen?
Supposed to happen June 19th through 21st.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
And they're I don't think they're going to be allowing meetings of more than 100 people.
No.
I've sent them several emails suggesting that they postpone it or have it later, but they haven't made a decision yet.
Yeah, they were actually on our one of these Friday sessions, I think 3 weeks ago. We had two of their John Moorhead, who's the competition coordinator, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but he's the Zimmergy editor. And they were still talking about, we're still waiting and seeing what's going to happen. And, they want to have a mini competition because, the National Homebrewing Competition got canceled.
Yeah.
So they want to do some sort of mini competition, but I don't know how logistically they would do that even if they had an event. But there's a lot of people in our club and across the country that put in entries for this competition, and they ended up getting distilled or made into hand sanitizer or consumed. But kind of a downer, but we all understand why.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they refund the entry fees?
They did refund the entry fees. I got my entry fee refunded in April. So
yeah, I was curious about that. They didn't mention anything about it.
They wanted you. They asked if you would donate it, right? And when you enter 8 beers at $10 a pop, it's a lot of money.
It wasn't 10. It was like 16.
Well, 16. Yeah, you're right. So that's a lot of money to donate to the AHA. So I'm not sure how many people did that, but I know I didn't. But definitely would like to see the NHC happen and make sure that it can be done safely. And would like to see some sort of competition, even if it's scaled down and lottery style, so they can make it manageable. Just to have some sense of normalcy, this year as compared to previous.
Well, I think the homebrew stores are probably doing real well since there's nothing else to do.
Are they able to be open?
I've heard 60% increase on business.
Yeah, their business has shot up despite the fact that they've been limited, because at first I believe they were not considered or deemed essential businesses, and as such they had to close. And like, wait a minute. And then all of a sudden homebrew shops said, okay, we're allowed to be open, but it's curbside pickup only. And like you said, 60% business gone. Love it.
Okay.
They're considered a grocery store. That's why they're allowed. That's why they were allowed to stay open, because they sell food products.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that. Man, Rage Against Corona. Love it.
I'm not sure that's the same across all
I know.
states, but
Somebody needs to make a beer like that right there. There's a beer name right there. Rage Against Corona. Yeah, the buddies that we hang out with over at Beer Chronicle Houston, they did the Teku glasses, the real fancy ones. And by the way, I'm curious. I'd like to ask a question about that real quick to you guys. But those real fancy, the real thin stemmed and weird shaped bowl Teku, they did those with a giant middle finger and it said Corona on it, or coronavirus or whatever. And they were selling a pair of them for $25 and giving money to charity, and it was kind of cool. I thought it was pretty cool. But I'm curious. I'm asking CIA. I want to know. Glassware matters. Yeah, proper glassware is nice. Beer clean glass is essential as far as I'm concerned. But what do you guys think of the? We'll start with two-part question. One, what do you think of the Teku glass? And two, how important is glassware?
So, I only prefer a clean glass. I don't care what it is as long as it holds beer. The Teku glasses look pretty cool. And, yeah. What was the second part of the question? Did I miss anything?
Well, I really wanted to know what you guys thought of the Teku because, I mean, I've got a couple of them, and they're a pain to clean. They don't hold a lot of beer. And I mean, they're very aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know that they lend themselves to enhancing any beer drinking experience. I mean, and as I sit here and drink out of my shaker pint, hey, listen to Chad. But you know, I like proper glassware, but the Teku is just one of those beer glasses that I haven't got behind. They're cool, they're expensive though, and they break easily. And I'm just curious to know if you guys are like, oh yeah, make sure you serve that Teku. Really? Okay. I haven't heard anybody ever say that, but there are some breweries that do that. And the other part is just how important is it? I mean, do you guys care? Like you said, whoever that was that just mentioned, as long as the glass is clean, hey, I'll drink out of it too. Yeah, I agree. But I'm just curious to know thoughts.
Yeah, me and my wife use them to split. This is Stephen Bell, by the way. We split like one of the big beers between us. So, we just use two of those.
The only glassware I really feel like is important is if you're drinking a highly carbonated Belgian beer, because of the tulip shape that you're supposed to drink those in, they kind of handle the really big carbonation and big head a lot better than the other glasses do, in my opinion. So to me, I prefer to drink my Belgians in those tulip style glasses.
I think the tulip kind of fits most styles anyway. I think it's designed for like hop aroma and flavor and just in general.
Yeah, I do. I'd also like that, I don't know if it's true or not, but, with the stem on your glass, I think it warms less maybe because the warmth of your hand as you hold it. Condensation is less, so you can sit it on wood and not worry about, damaging something. But, yeah. Thanks, David.
You need a bigger glass with a handle on it.
Yeah, handle helps too. But those are the things I like about I think it's a pretty glass. I think it's cool that you can have an elegant glass that kind of competes with wine stemware, right? So we display those Teku glasses against our wine stuff and our little glass hangy thingy in our home bar. So it's something. I don't use it every time, but when there's a beer that warrants something that's pretty, then I'll put it in there.
Our buddy is over at Beer Chronicle. They do a lot of those weird and crazy, amazing photo shoots, and they use that Teku all the time, where something's splashing out of it. Just look at it. I don't know how he does it, but it's a pretty cool shot. Me personally, I'm a sucker for the Sam Adams Boston Lager glass, and I mean, if I have a choice of any glass in my house, that is the glass I drink out of. And it's just, I love the shape of it. I love the way it just, the look. That's, I got verklempt. Give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves. I love it. It's a good glass. And
I get my glasses. I get my glasses from all of the races, like the 5Ks at No Label. So
I'm glad you specified that, because when you said you got glasses from all the races, I'm like, okay, Asian, Russian, African. I'm like, man, I don't have those. 5K, 10K. All right, marathon. I like it. I like the way you think. All right, that's good. Good deal.
I want to get that Elizabeth Warren glass.
Is that a Michelob Ultra?
That's a seltzer.
It's a seltzer.
All right, so what's I gotta ask. I mean, you guys are the home brewers. What's everybody home brewing right now? Anybody doing anything different, unique, crazy, exotic? I mean, I'm hanging out here. Just a quick reference for anybody who hasn't seen. I'm hanging out in a brewery at Brazos Valley in Brenham. They just got their occupancy license, and I'm drinking off their tap wall for beer to go. And they put an experimental hop IPA on, and I know you guys are gonna. I shouldn't have said that, because you guys are gonna ask me what daggum hops are in it. Now I'm screwed.
Hey, Chad, what hops are in it?
It's the.
Chad, I'm not sure if anyone asked what hop is it.
Oh, it's the and the hop. So you guys get that? So
Come
The
again?
headset's breaking up. Yeah.
Did I get a niner?
There's a niner in there too. Anyway, but they're doing some pretty cool experimental things, which and James and I were talking about Texas Leaguer. They have their Farm League Fridays where they roll out a new beer, and every Friday it's just an experimental something they do. But you guys get to do this all the time, and I'm curious. You guys doing anything cool?
I just used my Kavik, or however it's pronounced,
Right. Yeah.
and we'll see how that goes. It smelled good at when I put it in the secondary, and it's there's no bittering hops with the recipe I'm using. I'm just dry hopping, and with the El Dorado and Cascade.
Which Kvike did you use?
Gosh,
Isn't
I don't-
Kvike yeast? Isn't that like from unicorn horn or something magical? Because isn't it like supposed to be the perfect yeast?
So Kvike is a strain from Norway that stems from lazy brewing, lazy Norwegian brewers, who just wouldn't cool down their wort all the way, and would pitch yeast, and through selective pressure have bred a yeast. They throw out bad batches and they keep good ones, and they selectively bred this yeast to operate at higher temperatures.
So it's genetically modified, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but through selective pressure, not through genes.
Yeah, isn't that what's in this beer? That yeast?
It is.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
did not know
I feel like you just described my life.
that.
well, this book I'm reading on the lost art of farmhouse brewing says that they made 40-gallon batches, and they didn't have cooling equipment back in the day. So
But it's Norway.
Yeah.
It's Norway. It's cold there. I live there. So
I've got a bike going today right now, and it's at 90 degrees.
oh wow, look at that.
All right, hold on a second. Who just said that Norway, it's cold there. I live there. Who said that? I gotta know.
That's me, Matthew. I lived there for a
Okay.
year.
All right, hold on a second. Meteorologist Matthew giving us the weather report in Norway. Okay, hey, here's a tip. Norway, it's way the heck up there. It's cold.
Yeah.
And I went to Oslo for a week, and it was
Whoa,
awesome.
Jamil.
James likes to bring up the fact that he spent a week in Denmark or something.
A week? No, I spent a week in Oslo. It was beautiful. I love Norway.
Yeah, Norway is extremely cold. You have to have driveway heaters in order to get out of your own driveway, because it's hilly and cold and snow and ice. Does
So
not
it's like Michigan then,
yeah.
right, Chad?
I was gonna say I've never had a driveway heater, but that sounds awesome. I want to drive. Okay, listen. I want a man cave with beer that pours like just water. You open the faucet, and I want a driveway heater. That's what I want in my life. Even in Texas, I want a driveway
Life
heater
goals.
just to have.
In Houston.
That's right. And I want to own a car that actually has cold air. They have these cars now. Of course, I drive older vehicles, but they blow what is it? The air conditioning through the seats now, and cool your.
Yeah, my wife's
regions.
car does that.
Yeah,
Very
pretty
nice.
amazing.
I'll take you
So-
for a ride in my truck, Chad. Mine does that.
Okay, so all right, and we can go over and we can check out the driveway heater over at Matthews. Probably
Yeah, that's right. It only costs, with Norway, everything's expensive. It only costs about $2,000 a month to keep operating.
$2,000 a what?
A month.
To keep just to operate it?
Just to operate it. So me being cheap, I decided, I'm not going to operate it. I'm going to just, my wife and I are going to deal with the snow. And one day she's taking the kids to school and did 2 360s down the driveway, taking the kids to school.
Wow.
So then you spent $2,000 a month after that.
There you go.
Exactly.
I was gonna say, hey, you know what, dude? I could be like, okay, yeah, that's cheaper than running your driveway. Okay, I could take a bump every day. But
So we've had probably the master homebrewer Jamil Zanishaf has now joined us. I don't know if you guys know.
Log in on our desktops.
They're talking about us. Hey, how's it going?
Who's talking about us?
You guys see us?
Hold on.
Trying to do this
No,
all.
there's no camera.
No camera? What the fuck? Oh, hold on.
Then I'll put my clothes back
Start
on.
video.
okay,
Allow.
wait a minute. I don't.
There you go.
There you go.
See us now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there they are.
We're both in the camera.
Lena Hidalgo is very happy with you guys.
Rage. Yeah, that's right. Rage against Corona.
This is my best friend, Matt Thomas. He's homebrewer, distiller.
I try to make beers.
Yeah.
I try.
Are y'all the same 4.5 kegs away from each other?
Nope.
I can't touch his balls if we're that far apart.
4.5 pints away.
There you go.
Somebody was shocked by that. I could hear it. They're like, he said balls.
I get in my garage on a Friday.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
We had some Trident.
Yeah, if you live in California, you can order this online.
And we got some germ juice.
Are those the new screw-on cap cans?
Yes.
What?
How do y'all like those?
They're great, except this costs as much as a 32-ounce glass growler.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I don't know. I'm not that thrilled with it. And if I
Too much.
but this, I'm buying it already pre-seamed and everything, and they come just like this with the little lid on top. But it's like $1.80 something a piece, and the glass growlers that I get printed that are 2-color, buy the pallet or multiple pallets, and I get them for maybe right around $2, $1.92, maybe 10 cents more than these.
I think that same can you can get at AutoZone with a fuel additive.
Yeah, there you go.
Dump it out, Star Sand, you're good to go.
See, yeah, you should be owning a brewery. That's what I'm saying. No, but and also the label that has to go on it and all this stuff that costs me too because I have to buy waterproof labels. So the cost of these things is ridiculous because everybody expects them to be free, but it's costing me $2, so I can't really do them for free. We've been including them free, filled, so people don't, think about the price, but I got to charge at least $1. I can't be losing $2 off of every 32 ounces of beer, right? So I got to just charge more for the beer or something. I don't know.
I've noticed that at a local brewery, they charge, $5 a pint, but if you order a 32-ounce growler, it's $11 because the growler or the crowler costs $1.
Yeah.
And it's visible. I mean, the price is visible.
Well, and if I was to seal these myself, buy the lid separate, buy the can separate, which I can do, the machine's like $5,000-$6,000 depending on what machine you get, and then I'm saving about 25 cents a can. You know how many these damn things I'd have to seam in order to make that work out? Even just regular crowlers cost about $1.50, $1.25, and that's buying them by the pallet load. So I don't know. Regular crowlers, I think, are a bad idea because the opening is so large on the top that the larger your opening is on the top, the more oxygen you're going to trap when you seal that thing. So growlers are better than crowlers because the opening isn't so big. But everybody's, we all as craft brewers talk so much about how cans are great. How people are like, oh, cans are better. So I don't know. But at least on these, the opening's pretty small. So it's like a growler.
What's the seal material on the lid? I mean, is it can you buy new lids because it gets gunked up or?
Nope. I mean, I suppose maybe somebody would sell them, but I haven't seen them. It's aluminum, just like a beer can. It's really thin.
But I mean, does it have a seal, like a rubber seal or anything like that on it?
Yeah. You see that?
Yeah.
Where's my camera? Oh, it's over here.
They can't see that I'm not wearing pants.
Or that your balls are so massive.
Need a shot for that.
Hey, Jamil, I had a question for you. How are things in California? Like, how are things at your brewery as far as like curbside and how's that seem like?
So at this time, I mean, we just started, to-go ordering. We didn't have any online ordering at all until I just looked up today, March 24th. So we've been doing it a little over a month, or about 5 weeks, right? And now it's picking up. I think it's tripled since we first started, and
Oh, wow.
everything's to go ordering. And at first I thought we were doing about 50% of what we did before, but I looked it up today and we are actually doing vastly better than I actually thought. So we're doing maybe 40%, 35% of what we were doing before.
This is what he's doing.
So it's good, and one of the side benefits I think is people are getting used to ordering from us online. And when all this is over, I think people will still be used to ordering from us online. They'll accept it as a viable way to get Heretic beer and food. So I think it'll help. We've been doing a lot of family meals recently, like fried chicken dinners, lasagna dinners, things like that. And we'll get people order $1,000 of that on a Sunday.
That's awesome.
So how about compared to the Houston market, James or Chad, like the breweries that are in Houston, how does that compare? Do you guys know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I just know that in Texas is why there. I mean, there were, what was it, 71% down in sales? I know.
We saw something. What was it, Harris County beer report or beer sales or alcohol sales were down? It was 90.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was some
Because
ridiculous number.
Because of the venues, the sports and the
Yeah.
music and all that.
Yeah.
I remember last week, you guys, somebody was saying that.
Yeah, I remember. Brock Wagner was saying yesterday of St. Arnold that he was like 95.5% down.
Yeah,
And get the lunch
because
Wow.
they have so much stock in venue and sports venues like baseball and basketball that they're just not getting.
It tells you just how much volume they do in non-traditional revenue through. I mean, because the traditional revenue is Joe Six-Pack going in picking up a six-pack, or Joe the plumber going in and sitting down at a bar and ordering a pint, or Jane Seymour going in and sitting down at a bar or at the brew pub and ordering a pint and buying a six-pack to go. That's the traditional model of getting your beer from tank to consumer, and that happens. And you see that. That's a lot of transactions, but it's not necessarily a lot of volume. The big events make that difference.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this, that our draft sales are down 96, 97%.
Yeah.
But our can sales have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were going up anyways, but I mean, there was initially a huge surge that we had trouble keeping up with. But the problem is this: your can package is a lower margin package, just like crowlers. So if you have a 32-ounce crowler and a 32-ounce glass growler with imprinting, people see the 32-ounce glass growler as a higher value item than a crowler, right? You see, a crowler is a disposable aluminum can. And the same thing goes with canned 6-packs or 4-packs. People don't realize that the can and the lid and the pack tech and all that stuff on it, you're adding, 16, 17 cents per can. And then if it's got a label of printing, or a shrink sleeve, for God forbid, those are like 35 cents a can. I mean, think about that across a case, and think about the markup you have to pay on 35 cents. By the time it gets to you as a consumer, you're paying $1 a can extra to have a shrink sleeve on there.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't go with full wrap labels. I think that's a waste of money. You as the consumer, do you really want fancy artwork on your beer, or do you want quality beer? Do you want to pay an extra $2-3 for a 6-pack or a 4-pack, or would you rather save the $2-3 to buy other beer and have a simple label on there, a smaller label on there? Crazy how much it costs.
Yeah, I don't collect beer cans or bottles at all. I don't hold on.
For a collector, I understand. But
actually, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah,
I
that's a lie.
collect
I
it,
know
but
your
I'm
wife's in there saying, no, that's not true.
My wife's sitting right next to me. She's like, "You are so full of crap." But I'm gonna tell you right
collect
now.
some of them, but you're not like a crazy collector.
I actually am one of those crazy collectors, and I would take. So if you give me the little small label, I'm still keeping it. You give me the wraparound label, I'm keeping it, but I don't want to pay $1.50 more for that can. Do not.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So your point is well made, and the fiscally responsible Chad Pilbeam says, "I endorse your message, and I'll vote for it."
Right.
And Rage Against Corona.
It's stupid that you would pay all this extra money for somebody's marketing, and that marketing is just to convince you to try a beer. I understand that, but Jesus Christ, do we all have to pay so much money for somebody to try it? We're all competing, and everybody's competing the same way. Everybody's doing it. So where's the value?
What's the price difference on a full print can?
Yeah, that can you're holding right there, that costs dollars, man. That's an expensive can. There's probably, you probably paid at least $2 more to buy whatever, did you buy it in a pack?
About a case. About a 12-pack.
Mm-hmm.
You bought a 12-pack. Out of a 12-pack, it's probably, for the brewery, the cost was $10 minimum for that 12-pack. It may have been more. If it's a smaller brewery, it may have cost them close to $15 for that 12-pack.
That's St. Arnold.
St. Arnold, Summer Pills. Yeah.
Okay, and then if they have to go through a distributor, the distributor's taking their margin, the retailer's taking their margin. So it was probably like added at least 40 to or 30 some odd to $50 for that 12-pack. How much did you pay?
$14.99.
Oh my
For a
God.
12-pack?
Yeah.
There's not enough money to cover the cost of the materials.
$14.99.
Okay, so right, because the cans, those are 16-ounce cans you're holding up.
No, it's a 12. It's a 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so there are 12. All right, a 12-ounce can bought by the truckload, and I don't know what kind of can producing facilities they have there. I got one right down the road from me.
This is a ball. This is a ball can, and they're in town.
Okay, so the cans cost in the 9 to 11.5 cents per can. It depends on the aluminum surcharge, which is done by a group of like 8 people in Minnesota or something. There's a real weird thing that's going on there that the government has been looking into that is totally illegal. They put the surcharge on. And then the price of aluminum's been skyrocketing. We've been surcharged, on that too. So you're looking at about 9.5, 11 cents, 11.5 cents. Let's call that 10.5 cents a can. So 12 times 10.5. That's $1.25. And then the lids, they're 10 to 13 cents a piece. Of course, there's delivery charges on all this stuff. The lids don't come from the local ball plant. They come from across the country. It's only like 2 places that they come from. And so they charge you a shit ton in shipping because the pallet weighs like 4,000 pounds. They're really heavy. You're probably about the same price there. So instead of $1.25, now you're at $2.50. That artwork on that thing, is that a shrink sleeve or is that a print?
It's a print. It's a print, yeah.
But it's up into the taper.
Yep.
You sure it's not a shrink sleeve?
Oh yeah.
Check at the bottom and check at the bottom.
It's definitely a print.
Okay, so that's like a dye sub or some other kind of print. It's not like a standard print. How many colors are on there? Because the standard printing at Ball can't do that.
2, 3. Well, 1.
Black, white, red, blue.
I think you have to
1,
drink
2, 3. There's maybe 3, 4 colors on it.
Yeah, but you can't print that at Ball. Ball uses rubber mats etched out with ink in them, and these rollers, and they're limited, and there's to 6 colors, but they're limited to where they can print on the can. And
I'm looking to see where do you tell where the manufacturer is? Because I'm actually here at Brazos Valley, and this is the one printed can they have.
So there should be the thing that says Ball on it somewhere, a small little sliver, rotated around. It has to be on there if Ball did it.
Or Crown, right?
Or Crown. If it's got a Crown, it'll be from Crown.
Yeah, it'd be Crown.
Or say Crown.
Yeah. Because Sunstar has Crown
this is
on
Crown.
it.
This is Crown.
Crown,
okay.
yeah.
But if it's not on there, that means it's aftermarket printing. If it says it on there, then it was printed at Ball or Crown.
Yep, this says Ball.
Okay. So, wow. Then that probably reduces it down. So they're probably at $2.50, $3 for the material. It probably had a pack check on top or something, or a cardboard.
That was in a cardboard carrier.
Cardboard carrier, $1 to $2 for the cardboard carrier. So you're at let's call it $1.50. So we're at $2.53, $4 in materials. Now you got your labor, you got your beer, you got your distributor markup. Maybe that 12-pack went to the distributor at St. Arnold ain't making any money off of that because the distributor, I guarantee you, wanted their 30%, 30 or so, and the retailer wants their 35%. So if St. Arnold's paying $4 for the material, the beer is at least $1 minimum cost to fill that 12-pack, right?
Easily, yeah. I would think so. I mean, it's a lager too, so it's got a longer, fermentation time and all that.
So the thing is, the market is just, there's things keeping the market down. There's small breweries that, they don't, they've got other jobs, so they don't worry about what it costs them to produce the beer. They're just trying to break even. They're just trying, and so the whole thing suppresses the craft market. But let's say that it costs them, so you're at 14 You need about 10. You need to be down about 650. So if you're at $4, there's maybe $2.50 in there for the beer, which is, if you know, they got to be making like 50 cents off of that. The brewers are getting screwed. I don't know. I think it's, the costs are just ridiculous. Try to get Matt to have his 11-year-old son bring us beer on his bike.
It's happening right now
Oh,
as we speak.
I got gin and tonic too.
Literally, the wheels are in motion. It's what children are for, to bring you a beer.
But I've got friends with breweries, and they're using mobile canning. They're smaller runs, and they're selling in grocery stores. And they, I'm looking at them like, there's no way you're making any money on this. They're like, yeah, either we're breaking even or we're making or losing 25 cents a case. I'm like, that's just stupid. Why are you doing this? It's like, well, we got to keep the brewery busy in order to stay in business.
Pay salaries, yeah.
That's a giant mistake. I mean, you're screwing the business. So the one thing I was taught from the very beginning from Vinny at Russian River, God bless his soul, he told me this and gave it to me in a very serious way. He looked at me and said, look, he says, you're making great beer. He says, you do not ever play games with how much it costs you to sell beer. He says, you price it at your costs, all your costs, plus a fair margin. He says, just charge that. Don't try and say, oh, the market will do this, the market will do that, and up or down and prices and all that. He goes, don't do that. He says, you're just screwing everybody, including
You know who
yourself.
did that? You know who did that? Was Sculpin, and it didn't work out.
Rubicon.
Well, yeah, they were overcharging.
Correct.
But
They said the market will pay for it. They said the market will pay for it. And I talked to the rep, and I said, why is it that Sculpin is $16 a six-pack? And they said, because the market will pay for it. And I went,
well,
I don't know how long that's going to last.
But I'll tell you this: they were probably more honest in that pricing than people trying to price it to compete with Budweiser, right?
Oh, sure.
So
sure.
the worst thing for the craft brewers and for the market is to price things low, take a loss because you believe if people just taste your beer, it's going to be the greatest thing in the world and everyone will flock to it. And so all you need to do is price it low enough so that everyone will buy it and try it. Nobody respects a six-pack that is $3.99. None of you guys would respect that beer. Who is the Keystone?
I'm giving an amen. Amen, amen, amen.
I did when I was in college.
Yeah. And of course, when I was in college, in fact, speaking of that, I took my son beer, who's in college because he can't afford beer. So I took him beer, and I said, how much of this beer you want me to leave with you? And he says, all of it. It's like, great. And it's like, I shouldn't have bought so much. But but I took him some Oscar Blues. So, so he was pretty happy. And, but to your point, yeah, you're right. I mean, even, maybe a college kid would appreciate a cheap six-pack, but there's nobody who appreciates, I mean, if you appreciate quality, you appreciate value, but you don't appreciate cheap. And
right.
It's a great point. But by the way, why did you put the mask back on? It's messing with my head now.
I'm immune compromised, so I have to be extremely careful.
It's way easier to protect you when he's wearing a mask too.
He works out in the public because he's required to.
I'm dirty.
And he works with some really dirty people. So because of that, for the two of us to hang out together, you got to be careful. If I get it, all the things going on with me, I got like an 80% chance of dying. So
I have to give him a wet.
Right.
I gotta bathe him every time I come over.
He bathes it in sanitizer.
Like Chernobyl.
I was just gonna say It's like sanitizing a carboy, you know. It's like, okay,
Oh yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a
bring it.
carboy.
I'm bringing
Big
it.
Jump in this star sand for me, buddy.
Just
And we bring it full circle. It's back to home brewing again. I love it. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Oh my gosh. All right. So everybody else is in isolation. James is hanging out in Boston. Cheers. By the way,
Yeah.
funny segue for 30 seconds. James and his wife share the same Zoom account and same
well, not the
little
same
camera and
account,
stuff.
but the same
No,
room.
I'm telling the story. It's my story. You hush. Anyway, so his wife, who's a school teacher for elementary school kids, goes and gets on and is talking to parents and cheers bars in the background. She brought to change it. And the parents are like, Miss Simpson,
They're like,
where are you? You used to be yesterday. You were at the Eiffel Tower in Big Ben in the UK, and now you're in a bar in Boston.
Usually it's a library backdrop, like a bookshelf.
Yeah, so, that was pretty funny.
The new era that we're living in, the Zoom and social distancing.
You can be anywhere without being judged.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're out to see, I would sit on the shitter the whole time. I'd be like,
And people do.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a mistake. It'd be on purpose.
yeah. I mean, all these people that went to the bathroom on a Zoom meeting, I understand 100%. I would just have the right background. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's the only advantage to a background. Should I invite Palmer or somebody?
Ooh.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Knock it out of the park again this week.
While you're inviting him, I've got a question, Jamil. Are you brewing anything for the virtual homebrew day on Saturday?
No.
No.
We gotta change it up a little bit.
He has a light lager called Desperation.
Let me see if Palmer's around.
So let's bring it back to the Houston crowd. What do you got coming up on the show, James, Chad?
We put the question out that now that they're starting to lift the bans, how comfortable are people to go out? I mean, now that the restaurants are open, I mean, phase one, are people comfortable going out? Or are they just gonna stay back and see how things ride out? I mean, people don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people are gonna have to learn how to act in public again.
No, really. I mean, when you go out in public, your first note, like you want to give a high five, you want to give a hug, but you can't do that anymore. You just got to, hey, fist bump or elbow bump. But that's the big topic. I mean, how do people feel about going out now?
We got that, and then we've got probably the best Dave Ward feel-good story of the week that we've had in a long time. The feel-good story of the week involves canines in beer, and it'll make you smile. Yes.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. And
Well, people are getting creative with their beer delivery. I know that Texas, we can't do beer delivery from breweries yet, but other states can, and they're getting very creative with how they're doing beer delivery with practicing social distancing. So that's pretty interesting. And also, a big topic is there's a lot of keg beer that's going to waste. A lot of keg beer, and they're trying to get, what can we do with this keg beer without having to dump it down the drain? So you start seeing breweries, turn it to hand sanitizer or other things.
So, Chad, I heard you mention on the 5 o'clock call that you went to Rusty Gate.
I did.
So that's less than a quarter mile from my grandmother's old place.
I saw that so David Rogers was up there, and I saw your Facebook post, and you were within it was like a mile from where I was.
You were up there on last Saturday?
Yeah, I was there last Saturday.
David, you say it was your grandmother?
Yeah, my grandmother she lived in Trinity. So
did they get close to the tornadoes? Because the tornadoes ripped right through over there.
Yeah, so luckily, well, she passed away last year, so luckily she wasn't there. It would
Yeah.
probably would have given her a heart attack. But I think they were on the very beginning of that tornado on the north edge. So they got anywhere between 3 to 3.5 inch hail.
Damn.
It knocked down. We cleaned half the yard, maybe half of the front yard, maybe half an acre. It took us all day. We moved about 20 cubic yards of material, limbs and branches and pine straw and leaves.
Where were you? Half an acre for the front yard.
Texas.
Well, it's a 2-acre property, so we only cleared half of the front yard.
That's a $1 million home out in California.
Yeah, for real.
So my dad was actually out there today with the insurance adjuster because he inherited it, and my parents put insurance on the property. After she passed away, she didn't have insurance on it. And before we went up there, they said the insurance company doesn't cover metal roofs, and she had a metal roof on the house. I thought, no big deal. I mean, metal roof, the hail's just going to pound on it, and I mean, it may be a little dented, but doesn't matter. Well, he said that the insurance is going to cover replacing the metal roof because the damage was so bad.
Wow.
The entire 2-acre property is pummeled with anything between baseball and grapefruit size holes in the ground. They're just big as my fist will fit in those holes. They're everywhere.
That can, oh man, that can
Yeah,
kill a
those
kid.
pictures.
Well,
Yeah.
Point, California. I'm just saying we don't get that size hail here. Yeah.
Yeah, but y'all get wildfires.
It was bananas. I mean, she had those plastic gutters on her house, and they were just destroyed. Even the aluminum gutter on the garage was destroyed. It was bad. So we're going back up this weekend. That's why I mentioned Rusty Gate. I'd like to stop by there. I just don't know. Up there, everything is a 2 or 4 acre lot, and you can't just pull up somebody's house and pull in the driveway and knock on the door, right? Because
yeah,
you might walk away with holes.
I was gonna say holes in you, yeah, and it's out there in the woods, and I'll tell you, it's a cool drive. And when we pulled up on it, they put some signs out there, and they'll even tell you GPS will tell you go down this road, and they even made a beer after it. It's called Goober Road or something, or Goober Gap Road, and they made a Goober Gap Stout. And what happens is the road just dead ends right at their property, but it doesn't go through, so you can't get there. So you have to actually go back and go all the way around and get there. And I mean, it's dirt roads, it's bumpy roads, and you get back in there and it's quiet. You can't hear anything. You're like, all right, this is where we hide the body. Got it. Okay.
The roads are a lot better than they used to be. A lot better. It's been up there for 25 years.
Chad, what did he say that he bought the property for about as much as a Suburban cost?
Suburban, yeah. He says I paid as much for this property as I did for a used Suburban.
So it goes for $1 million in California, but the price of a Suburban in Texas.
No, a used Suburban.
A used Suburban.
That's important.
Excuse me.
Yeah, a used Suburban. So I think he bought all that land, everything. If I had to guess, he bought all that land for probably about $30,000.
And it has a lot of grapevines on it too. The previous owners used to make grape juice a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know
they
if
did.
they made.
They did, and it was a while. And then I looked at like the structures he put up. The structures he put up were amazing, and I thought, man, you put some real work into this. It's clean. I mean, it looks clean. It smells clean. It's fresh. It's a nice drive. I will tell you, their beers. I mean, they've been brewing them since November. So there's, obviously with everything, they're learning and going. But I'll tell you what, he's got it dialed in, and he's refining as he goes. But it's got a little bit of a rustic farmhouse-like character. Very. Most of his beers have a little more of a grainy, like a farm characteristic. Like you can really get into the grain bill as you're tasting it. The hops kind of balance it out and have a floral note and a touch of bitterness. But the reality is he's just having fun, and he's making good beer. I mean, he's not trying to win awards, and he's not trying to impress anybody. He's just like, hey, I set up here. I'm doing what I love, and I mean it's home brewing explosion. Basically on steroids. I will ask this question because this one came out when I saw it. He uses plastic fermenters. And I'm like, man, I've heard so many horror stories with plastic fermenters, and I know he bought the old Ingenious system, but I'm curious to know, have you guys done any experimentation with plastic fermenters and switched over and just seen a vast improvement in the quality of the beer? Because I'm wondering. I mean, he, like I said, it was good. It was good beer to drink right there. I mean, fresh on the site. It was great. I enjoyed it. You know, it was just. But I mean, I don't know if he's going to win any awards with it. But at the same time, he's making beer you can drink. You're not spitting it out, and it's solid. I mean, like okay, yeah, this is good. I like this. I mean, he's a great guy. He served our country. He's military, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't mind driving up there again and throwing a few dollars in the till. Get a growler
Going up there
today.
Sunday if you want to help clean up.
Giddy
bring
up,
some
man.
gloves.
Giddy up. So plastic fermenters, thoughts?
I personally have had trouble with a plastic fermenter. I was getting off flavors in almost every single one of the beers I did out of it, and I was cleaning the heck out of it, and it turns out it probably had like a micro scratch in it or something that I could just never get clean. And I switched to glass, and I switched to the stainless steel fermenter, and like the quality of the beers we produced were so much better.
I'm 100% plastic. Better Big Mouth Bubbler from Northern Brewer. I've been using them for 4 years or so. No issues.
I have stainless for my clean beers, but my sour program, I'll throw them in a plastic bucket, and let them go. And then, I've got a Solera program, which is a recycled type of sour beer program, and I'll just dump them into that afterwards, and that's all plastic as well. So it depends on what you're doing with it, Jamil, what do you think about plastic fermenters? I think he's
Well,
on mute.
no, I think you can get good results from them. There's two aspects that you need to look out for. One is the oxygen permeability of that plastic fermenter, because just about every plastic will have some oxygen permeability, whereas glass really doesn't, metal really doesn't. There are certain plastics that have really low oxygen permeability, and there's plastics that have a high oxygen permeability. So you have to kind of take that into account for, while it's actively fermenting, it's really not that much of an issue, but after it's done fermenting, the oxygen permeability becomes an issue. It's okay to leave a beer in a carboy where you've taken it off the yeast. You can leave it there for a long time. It's not that big a deal. In a bucket, it becomes a problem. The other issue is plastic is very soft, or most plastics, I should correct myself, are quite soft. And even just wiping it with your hand will scratch the inside of a plastic. If you're scrubbing it with like a blue scrubby and all that, you're putting a bunch of grooves in it. It adds surface area and nooks and crannies where bacteria and other wild yeast and things like that can survive. And when you go to sanitize it, the liquid can actually surface over those nooks and crannies and leave those bits of bacteria or other yeasts alive, untouched. So that's why scratches are bad. That's why plastic, is not the ideal thing. Now, the one thing that mitigates that scratching is if you heat it up. If you take your plastic bucket and you put 140 degree, 150 degree water in there, it takes, you got to be, and before any of you do this, you got to be really careful. 160 degree water, 161 degree water essentially pasteurizes the surface in under a minute, in a second or two. The problem with it is it's extremely dangerous. Hot water will kill you. It will eat the flesh off of your bones. So you got to be really careful when you're working with hot water. If you are, you could just, slosh some extremely hot water inside your plastic containers, and it should kill anything that's in those scratches that are in there. You want to just avoid scratching that surface, and you want to heat treat it, and it should last a long, long time. It'll become brittle with UV exposure and with chemical exposure. That's another, I guess that's the third issue with it. But, it's vastly cheaper than anything else. So you can use it. You just need to be aware of all the impacts on, how you use it, why, what the issues are and how you deal with them. But if you do, I think you make just as good a beer in a plastic fermenter as you could in a steel or glass fermenter.
Or you can add caustic to your plastic fermenter and melt it.
Palmer says he just finished with a group from Ecuador and lost it for it's now.
Ecuador.
So let's expect Palmer here in a minute.
I'm gonna go pee in your bushes.
Awesome.
Hey, you crazy kids! I'm gonna have to bounce here.
Yeah, I am as well. The wife's got the dinner for me. But hey,
Well,
Jamil, I'm a big fan of Heretic. Like, I love your beers, man.
Oh,
big
amen,
fan.
amen. And I'm hanging out here at a brewery myself here. Brazos Valley Brewing. They just got their occupancy, and once they lift the ban on everything, we'll be able to come here and hang out. But I thought I would just give you just a quick 360 view here. Yeah, that's a little bit of.
All right.
Any idea when that'll happen?
Well, hopefully in the next month, but you know how it is. I mean, it's with all the rules and everything. I mean, who knows? I mean, don't look at anybody, don't think about anybody, don't breathe on anybody, don't cough near anybody. Just, you can't, go into the bubble. Here, let me jump into the brew house for a second because it's getting loud over there. They got people coming in getting beer to go. But it's, everything they're doing is right as far as, complying with the regulations, the rules. They're trying to open the brewery. And, I mean, they honestly, this brew pub / tap room was supposed to be open a couple months ago. And even if it was, it'd be like, doesn't matter. I mean, it shuts down second this Corona thing hits. And now they're hoping to hold on like everybody else. The good news is they've got great owners. They're making great beer. They're putting good stuff out. And just, my wife and I, we came up here to help sell beer. And I told my wife, I said, I need you to actually sell beer behind the bar tonight so I can jump on this call with you guys. So, that's that's what 25 years of marriage will do. So, oh, look at this. She's even taking out the trash. She's taking out the trash. I tell you, it's a good marriage right there. So there's my endorsement.
Is that what you're saying?
She's used to dealing with trash. She hangs
dealing with trash.
She hangs out with this guy. She's used to trash. All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate you inviting us to come on. And
thanks, Matthew. Appreciate
all
it, buddy.
the support. But I do have to go and actually, believe it or not, I gotta go and close out because we were selling beer and we're responsible for making sure they get all their money.
You guys be safe, and hopefully we can all get together for a beer soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely,
All right,
guys. Take care. Be safe.
Cheers.
Have a great
Thanks,
weekend.
guys. Thank you.
You bet. Cheers.
So I think John's
Matt's
on
wife
now.
just brought Matt's wife just brought more beer over. John's on.
Yeah, I
Rock
see he's
candy.
on now. So he's on mute though.
Hey, you got to get
There
through
we go.
the unmuting.
Yep.
Hey,
How y'all
brother?
doing? I'm doing great.
Good.
Good to see you, brother.
You too. Oh, where are y'all at? Where is everybody from you? Oh, St. Arnold's cool. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Majority of us.
here in Houston area, just West Houston, in a city called Katy. Most of us
Okay.
are in that area.
You're in back home there in Fairfield, Jamil?
Yeah.
Or
Vacaville.
Vacaville. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, got Syracuse.
Oh, very nice.
You got Matt. You know Matt Thomas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know Palmer. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah.
He had his wife drive over some more beer for us drunk, and we got Queen of the Jungle from King Kong.
King Kong.
Nice.
Those proteges.
One of my guys.
Oh.
So, question for John and Jamil: is your life made up of Zoom meetings now? Is that all you do?
Just about, yeah. That and editing all day long, yeah.
This is my second Zoom meeting. The first was with you guys. So I really, I don't know. I think there's a lot of breweries and stuff that are trying to pimp things out with lots of Zoom meetings and all that. And I understand that. You got to keep your business going, and I've got no problem with that. But I don't know. If
find ways
people
to
aren't
stay
brewers,
relevant.
I don't know. I like meeting with brewers. I like meeting with my people, So that's the biggest thing for me is meeting with people that brew. People that just consume, that's fine, but I don't know. It's a different kind of conversation.
Right.
And I feel less at ease with consumers than I do with brewers. Brewers, I feel like I could say anything.
I remember that was the exact reason I got into home brewing was a guy one of my buddies invited me over for a brew day, and I didn't even know that he made beer, and I sat down and we brewed a couple of batches that day, and I immediately fell in love with it because it was my escape from the bottle sharing, beer chasing scene where a bunch of people just get around and flaunt their income, $22 a bomber at a time. And, it's like, oh, yes, get your Tiku glass and Teku. And smells like elderberries and what's the bread? Horse smells, and it's just like, I can't hang out with these people anymore. I've gone too deep. And it was like, I'll just sit here and make pale ales. I love it. That was the exact thing that got me into it.
I respect making it yourself, You don't have to buy it. I mean, we all do just because, we're passionate about it, right? But, you should be able to make it yourself, and you should be able to make it better than, the stuff you buy. That's your goal. Not to just be, a geek, checking things off a box because you had this, you had that, or trading and dealing and this or that, but because you're passionate about learning. And that's why you're interested in trying that beer, was to learn about how to make a beer like that, or to learn some aspect of that you enjoyed and apply that to some other beer. That's the whole reason why.
I think part of learning is also trying those other beers, right? You got to know what they taste like to try to mimic them. You got to have them at least once, but after that, there's no reason to keep buying them.
The conversations are just
have it a couple of times, sure.
Yeah,
to see if what you brewed matches up or not.
Yeah, the conversation's just a lot different with brewers than it is with. I call them the beer nerds, even though I am a beer nerd. But it's just. Like, you can sit down with a brewer and you can have a conversation about what makes a cream ale great. If you sit down with, just the beer scene, there was only 3 kegs of this ever made. It's a Russian Imperial Stout aged in wine barrels, blended with the quad, tossed in some Brett, and then it was aged on mushrooms, and it needs to be served at room temperature. And it's just like, This isn't for me
The difference-
anymore.
Yeah, we actually we were talking about you earlier. We were talking about people that can appreciate the $3 six pack.
I couldn't hear you.
We were talking about like you earlier. Like we were talking about people that can appreciate the $3 six pack.
I am not above, on a bad day, spending $1.29 on a 40 of Steel Reserve. It is what it is. That's not a good beer, though. And I'll drink Keystone Light and defend that crap to the death because it's still a clean American light lager. But
You spent all last week explaining why you drank a lot of Keystone Light.
You asked me on clean.
I don't remember. I drank a lot of Keystone Light.
Well, I made a real nice dunkel a couple weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to trying tomorrow. Should be carbonated soon.
What's
Yeah,
everybody
we
got
just-
in their fermenters right now? I've got a Czech Pills in mine. It's finishing up. It's a double decoction. It's finishing up its primary. Gonna let it lager for a bit.
Nice. What yeast did you use?
I got some yeast from Imperial, their Urkel yeast.
Oh, okay.
And I made a 5-liter starter. Hey, that's a great beer right there. That Salty Lady is
Salty
a
Lady.
great beer.
Nice.
This is disgusting. This is horrible.
You don't like it? I love that beer. I love that beer.
Like salt in this fucking thing. This is undrinkable.
I love Salty Lady. That's a great beer.
Yes. I can't deal with this anymore.
I know something I'm really excited about is after our conversation we had, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but Jamil was there, and we were talking about how some people feel like they can, I think it was Jamil that said he can taste the difference between dry yeast and something from like White Labs or Y Yeast. So my next pale ale, I'm actually going to divide it into 2.5 gallons each. I'm going to do White Labs in one, and I'm going to do US05 in another, and just see how it goes.
I absolutely can taste the difference.
No, I'm excited to see what comes out of it.
Yeah. US05 is not my favorite ale yeast.
What?
Oh.
Hey Matt Harold, what was my
Block
house
him.
flavor?
Yeah, how do I?
The Salty Lady.
It's like the go-to for standard beer.
US05 house flavor.
I've had some really bad beer made with 05 from good brewers. That
Did I make it for you? It could have been my beer.
no, this is. I swear.
I get a canned peach flavor when I drink a beer made with US05 that's been aged for a bit. It's like a weird peachy flavor.
Yes. Yeah. Peach is a sulfur aspect. Yeah, peach.
Yep.
Peach, absolutely
05
peach and canned peaches.
Yeah, 05 throws a lot of sulfur, and which you don't get in in the liquid yeast cheek whale. Yeah, 01 or 12.
But you can get sulfur from stressing 01, which the drying process will stress it. So if you stress your yeast and you're like, well, there's no difference. Well, okay, there's no difference between a liquid yeast and a dry yeast if you're stressing your yeast all the time. But I think John's tasted this a lot because he and I have both done a bunch of Asia trips and a lot of, they use a lot of dry yeast over there, and a lot of Europe uses a lot of dry yeast because it's difficult to get liquid yeast from the U.S. sent over there. So White Labs and other labs are setting up propagation plants in Asia and in Europe to mitigate that.
Yeah.
Before it was just way too expensive, so that's why they used it. And like I said, John and I have tasted a lot of it, and you just taste it. You get to know what it tastes like.
Yeah. Now, the one dry yeast I do like is 3470, the SAF lager. That one's pretty bulletproof. Haven't had any real.
I'm sorry, because there's so much sulfur in it already in a lager. That more sulfur, you expect some sulfur in a lager, right?
Yeah. whereas you don't in
So I
an
agree
ale.
with you 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think if you're going to
Mhm.
use dry yeast, lager might be the way to go.
Yeah, which is 10 years ago would be like, what are you talking about? But yeah, these days that's the dry lager yeasts are pretty good.
Where's the
10 years
sulfur
ago
come
we
from
didn't
in your
have good dry
opinion?
lager yeast.
Is the
Right.
sulfur
Well,
from
all
the
the dry
water
yeast is
chemistry or?
bad because
No, it's from the amino acid.
What happened?
Oh.
Well, and what happened before was when they were drying the yeast, they would just blow air through, right? They didn't care that the air was contaminated with bacteria, other yeast, all that. It didn't matter. It wasn't that important. So they would take air and just pump air through the chamber to get the yeast dry. Now that all of a sudden the amount of bacteria and wild yeast matters, they're starting to, sterile filter or at least HEPA filter the air that goes through the chamber. And that has been the difference between 10, 15 years ago and today is that now they're actually filtering the air. It costs them more money because they got to pay for filters. They've got to pay for the energy to push air through a filter instead of just freely through. All that stuff has added to the cost, but it's resulted in a much better quality. Is it still as good as wet yeast? For me, no. But, it's really, heads and tails above what it was. But plus, like John was just alluding to, is that they've gotten much better at deciding when to harvest that yeast, how to harvest that yeast. I mean, when you're, when you decide to crash the temperature, how you crash the temperature will cause the yeast to go into a state that hoards their glycogen reserves, doesn't use them up. It's a science, and they've gotten better at that, and they've paid attention to that. So they're actually harvesting the yeast better now. They're processing it so it's got less contamination to it. All those things have added to a much better dry yeast. But the process of drying stresses the yeast so much that you get this sulfur character, and I get it. I thought it would go away fairly quickly, but it's still there, pitches down the road. So I'm not sure how long it takes before it ever goes away.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, I know the
all my
05
soapbox rant.
to me throws a lot. Yeah.
So let me ask a question.
I've had some.
I'm very curious. So the whole dry yeast versus liquid yeast has kind of fascinated me since the conversation we had in the last Zoom. Why is, I've never heard an expert say, hey, US-05 throws a lot of sulfur. Why, just for comparison's sake, how does wine, which is predominantly dry yeast, and I'm trying to just wrap my head around, because beer, we know that beer is every bit as delicate as wine is, but I could picture people making wine if they knew that dry yeast was more stressed and caused more issues than liquid yeast. I guess I'm trying to compare and contrast how dry yeast would affect something like wine. I'm struggling with the actual question.
So go into any wine forum and look at the words sulfur and wine. And sulfur in wine is a huge problem. They deal with that all the time. They're got all sorts of methods of trying to mitigate sulfur in wine, including, racking it across copper and a whole bunch of other things, because a lot of wines
Keeping
are
all
just
the tannins
so sulfur heavy. Right. Well, the tannins, and also because they tend to use Camden, which is a sulfur product, and puts more sulfur in it, or they'll sulfite the wines,
metabisulfite,
which they need to get rid of that sulfite. And that's why also on the label of any wine you buy, it's going to say sulfites, it contains sulfites and all that, because it's of a such a high level that they need this government warning on the labels. So, some sulfur from the yeast, it's
minimal.
part of the problem, but also, it's insignificant compared to how sulfury the wines are by themselves.
Can you minimize the amount of sulfur by racking off the cold break before a primary fermentation?
No. That's the one reason that certain yeast throw sulfur into the beer. They you get the rotten egg aroma, or you get burnt match aroma. Another thing is the amino acids requirements of the yeast strain versus the amino acids that are in the malt and in the grain bill. So, anytime you pitch yeast, they're having to synthesize half of what they need, and the more they have to synthesize sulfate or sulfur-containing amino acids, they take in 3 sulfur molecules, keep 1, and exhale the other 2, and so that's where water chemistry comes into it, but it's yeast strain and their amino acid requirements that generates most of the sulfur off flavors in beer.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Is that why a lot of German brewers rack off of all the cold break and then just ferment the wort itself?
Oh.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the cold break supplies a lot of the nutrients that the yeast would need. So there have been published studies showing that a highly turbid wort with the cold break in can produce a less, or a cleaner tasting beer, more vigorous fermentation, healthier fermentation. But in terms of haze and clarity, getting some of that minimizing that cold break, minimizing the trub carryover can help that. So it depends on who you talk to, who your professor was.
Well, and I'm also, Palmer and I have talked about this before, and it's that, and maybe not. It's other aspects of it as well, right? I mean, we're not 100%. We're
right.
2 possible lines up.
Yeah, that's very, very well said. Yeah, I don't know all the reasons.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah.
We have a couple of theories. And John's probably right.
To some extent.
Travis wonders why your hair is so dark. Are you not old enough to have gray hair now?
I got lots of gray hair on the side. I guess just the lighting.
Show us your pubes. Travis wants to see
This is not that type of Zoom, guys. So.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, Palmer, what are you doing?
I was trying to turn on the light.
It was a joke. Oh, yeah. Magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Make it look bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Hair dye has been acceptable ever since Kevin Nash dyed his hair black for the old school NWO, and I won't hear anything from anyone else that says otherwise.
There. See, I got some gray hairs somewhere. It's just the lack of them that's the main thing.
So what's your favorite yeast strain for lagers, John? Since you talked about 3470 for dry, do you have a favorite liquid strain as well?
Yeah, German ale, I think, or no, it's the Mexican lager. That one's a very nice, clean yeast.
940 is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I like clean yeasts. You just taste, with all the competitions and so on, you taste so many slightly bad beers that you really value a nice clean beer. So yeah, I like the Mexican lager one very, very well. And
I know David
3470.
Rogers uses that quite a bit. Some of his lighter lagers, right, David?
Yep. light lager and cream ale. Actually, I use the Mexican lager yeast.
Yep.
But I've come on to 920 recently for German styles.
Oh.
And it's done really well for my Helles and my Pilsner. I'm drinking that now. My Pils that I just kegged a couple weeks ago. Tastes great.
Nice.
I think it's the Augustiner. Supposed to be the Augustiner yeast.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I haven't done a lot of lager brewing lately. I mean, I did one a couple weeks ago, but I used the 3470. Yeah, tomorrow.
When you say 3470, are you talking about the 830 yeast or something else?
No,
the dry yeast?
the dry yeast, the Fermentus Saf Lager 3470.
That's Weihenstephan, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from there, but yeah.
The White Lamb's 830 is essentially that yeast.
Yeah. 830.
Which is Y yeast equivalent?
What's the Y yeast equivalent of 830? Do we know?
2124, I think.
Go to MrMulti.com and look it up there.
I have looked it up, and two different places it has two different equivalents. So I actually asked this question to Brew Strong, but I never got a response. So,
we're busy. I don't know if you know, John and I are very important.
Oh, calling people out, that's not right.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does it say on MrMulti.com?
well, one of it says 2124, and the other one says it's 22. I can't remember the other one. Let me look at
2308? I don't know. I'm just throwing
I've never memorized yeast numbers.
There's a old page that has like Kristen England's name at the top. It says he manages this page, and many people reference that like on the homebrew forums, and it's just it's hard to it's different from the more up to date page. So I've kind of gone with the more up to date ones, but you'll see this perpetuated.
Where'd the up to date information come from?
I don't know. It's from the same Mr. Multi page. So let's see what it says here. 830 is 2206, but
2206,
on the older one with Chris in England's name on the top, it said 2124. So
no, he has it. He has so on Mr. Multi it has 3470, has 2124, and 820.
Yes, I see that.
That's on the Mr. Multi page.
Right, but there's like an
whatever that says must be perfect. I'm just I don't know who the guy is, but I can't imagine they would make a mistake and put it on the web. No, so that information all came from Kristen England. So he kind of sussed all that out, and regardless of what I believe, that was what he wanted, and he had more information than me on those. So maybe we should hassle him and hunt him down and see if he's got any changes for it. I would update it.
The only reason I say is because the older version is like
what I agreed. There's no older and newer version.
Okay.
There's just the version that's been sitting there for 10 years or whatever.
I'll paste the chat.
Years.
Here's the old page. So if you let me do it to everyone. So if you go to this page that I just sent and walk that across, it says 830 is 21. Let's see, where is it? It's 2124. And then the newer page, the one that David was, where is it?
Yeah, I just looked it up on my computer.
Are you going back to like you're going to Google caching or something, or
no?
How are you getting
these are pages on there, and then this page. Let me paste.
Oh, it's a yeast.php page.
So
you might have some old references, yeah.
So they're different. You'll see in there. You see it, David?
So what you need me to do is to hassle the people at Y Yeast and Kristen.
Chris White.
And No, so the problem is Chris White and the people at Y Yeast the people at Imperial and Giga and Omega and all these folks.
They don't want to reserve. They don't want to reveal their sources.
Well, part of it is they don't want to, be liable for any sort of, stealing of somebody else's. If you say, oh yeah, our yeast is the same as such and such as whatever yeast, it becomes, it's like, well, you've stolen our copyright, our labeling, our naming. That's why, people need to do numbers all the time, because, if you do numbers, it's like, well, you can't trademark a number. Well, the people have trademarked 7, so who knows? And 1 and 2.
Seagram's did, right?
Yes. So, well, you can't trademark just the number. You do number 7 and the stylized and all this crap. That's like how people can trademark drippy red wax on Maker's Mark. I don't know. Yeah, it's trademarked. Maker's Mark. If you start and I'll tell you, the number of homebrewer or the number of commercial brewers, craft brewers, who have started packaging stuff with drippy red yeast, or drippy red wax. They're in for a hurting coming up, because Maker's Mark is very protective of their drippy red wax. Wow. Why you would allow somebody to trademark that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna try to get Matt. Here's your challenge. Go get Chris White on this call.
I don't know.
I can text him.
Water profile for.
I'll text Chris and ask him to join, but he won't tell you anything about that.
I'm gonna brew a Kvike Deepa tomorrow.
How do you like the Kvike yeast?
Yeah, which Kvike?
This will be my first time using it myself.
Which strain are you using?
It's number 8 on the registry. I forget.
Only Matt knows which one that is.
I gotta go look it up.
Tormgarden, I think is the name.
Where'd you get it?
Yeah, how did you receive it?
I got it while I was in Norway. One of the guys brought me a baggie of chips, and I brought them home. So it's number 8.
Is it pure strain or mixed?
No, it's a mixed.
Okay.
It's an old mixed strain that's been in that village or region for around 100 years. They said.
In your underwear for 100 years.
There's 10 strains in that mix. My goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Crotch cheese.
So I'm gonna try it tomorrow in a Deepa and see what we get.
Palmer and I are going to release our personal crotch strains here. We're just working with the bidding from the yeast companies as to which one's going to pay the most for our crotch strains. Yeah. It was very easy to harvest. I mean, you just scrape off a bunch, and we fill the packages just off of that.
Is that a dry strain? Is that a dry strain or a liquid strain?
We have a couple of hundred. We have a couple of hundred packages.
It depends on the humidity of the day, right? I mean,
we're always growing. It's considered a jock strain. I'm just saying.
The hard part was sitting in a chair for an extended period of time with, wet pants when, they pour wort in your lap as a starter.
Well, no, this liquid yeast and dry yeast makes a lot of sulfur. It still can't be too much worse than that Rogue Brewing beard yeast.
Why everyone got upset about that, I don't understand. It was selected down to a single cell. So when you select something down to a single cell, there's no bacteria, there's no flavor, there's nothing other than that pure little yeast cell that has. You could eat 1 million of them. There's no contamination or anything. It's just yeast.
Yeah.
And everyone got freaked out about it. It's like, well, one, I know John, and he's just, I would lick his beard. You know, one, he's a great brewer, a great person.
Someone isolate that clip.
And so I don't see the problem with yeast from his beard. It probably just fell out of from the brewery. I don't think it's anything really, unique. But once you've isolated by cell to cell, it's pure. There's nothing contaminatory about it. I invited Chris. We'll see. Who knows? He may be traveling, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So just to wrap that up, I can't disagree with you at all, especially based on the science you just threw out there. But I still think I'm going to stick with the groupthink. It's gross. It's just weird.
I would like to harvest the yeast from my yard, see what, see what I could brew with that, what that would turn out to be. Apparently there's thousands of unidentified Saccharomyces yeasts out there. So I could harvest one from my yard, you could use it from one from your yard, and it would be a completely unique strain.
Well, yeah, a lot of the yeasts are, they've developed over time in a given area. So we've actually harvested yeasts and bacteria and all that in our little valley from the San Francisco Bay up through the Delta, the wine fields and all that to where we're at. And so it's the reason that San Francisco sourdough is unique, right? And why people respect it is because of all the culture that's unique to there. You cannot make San Francisco sourdough from somewhere else. That's why the sours of the Sen Valley are unique. But we have a unique culture in the Solano Valley, or whatever you want to call it, and it will do kind of the same thing. So like you're saying, John, where you're at, absolutely, that's unique. Where we're at, it's unique. And I think people have been going, thinking like, okay, so the Sen Valley, oh my God, you cannot do anything anywhere else in the world that is, not like, it's like, well, true, we can't do exactly what you're doing there from a wild harvest of the cultures around, but we can do our own thing. And what's not to say it's as good or even better than what's
equally unique. Yeah.
We'll raise wort up to our open skylights and harvest overnight. We'll bring it down in the morning. It's frothing like crazy. We thought there would be a lot of lager yeast because we're downwind of the Anheuser-Busch brewery, but there's no lager yeast in it. Bunch of sack yeast, 5 strains of Brett, a bunch of bacteria, and it's unique to our valley.
Ooh, tin can.
So if you were trying to do something like that, is it better in the spring whenever everything's budding, or is it better after the fruit's on the trees? I was talking with somebody about this the other day. They were putting in a bunch of fruit trees, and we were talking about wild yeast. What's the best time of year to kind of try that?
So the thing is, and one of the things that we've learned from the folks in traditional settings for hundreds of years, they've been only exposing their wort after they'll do like 5 freezing nights, and then they'll go ahead and inoculate their wort with the air. We do 3 freezing nights because generally we don't get 5 freezing nights. So we'll do 3 freezing nights, and then we'll go ahead and do our inoculation. And the reason for that is the freezing nights will kill the bacteria, but won't kill the yeast. So what they're trying to do is favor the yeast over the bacteria. So that's why they do the 5 freezing nights.
So this area would
You don't want to do it in the spring. You want to do it winter.
So this area
Just
would
so
not
you
be
know.
good for trying to do that harvest wild yeast then, because we barely get a freezing night down here.
I've harvested yeast.
Oh, have you, Matt?
locally. Yeah, I pre-acidify and make it 5% alcohol to make sure I get a strain that will ferment high gravities, right? But I picked up a strain last year that was pretty dang good, and I was able to isolate it.
The point is to eliminate the bacteria.
Right.
The yeast will survive all that. The point is you want to decrease the amount of bacteria, because bacteria generally, while they'll acidify, they'll also produce some enteric and some really nasty characters to beer that you don't want. What you really want, the main of, is yeast. You want a yeast fermentation. You don't want a bacterial souring of wort, which can be deadly in some cases. Botulism is in the soil. You get a lot of wind. It's it can be a problem. So you just have to be careful about any natural ferment, and one of the ways to be careful is to have those freezing nights. Over the hundreds of years, I guess they killed some of their customers or something, and they decided, hey, maybe we should wait for the freezing nights. I don't know how they did it. They determined that these freezing nights were a critical part of the process. So if you go to Cantillon or wherever today, they'll tell you, say, no, we don't brew during. They don't brew, fall through, spring through fall. They don't brew at all. They only brew winter through beginning of spring, and they're done, and that's it, because they need those freezing nights. They need a condition that only favors the yeast and not the bacteria. You still get the bacteria, but certain bacteria die off, and certain bacteria that actually will contribute something positive to the beer and not kill you, those are still present.
Can you do a post-ferment test to see if it's yeast fermentation or like way too much bacteria, or just try it out on your friend and see if he dies?
No, I mean get a microscope out and look at it.
But specifically on the beer, if you do like a wild fermentation directly in the wort, not like, I know Matt grows his up on a petri dish and he separates them out. But if you do just a open fermentation, can you tell after fermentation? Can you run anything on it?
Hey, Travis, I thought you were bathing your baby.
That was like 2 hours ago.
I took me that was you were like spanking it or something.
Shift gears.
Right. So what's the question? I just had a beer put in front of me.
Can you taste the resultant beer and determine whether it's safe or not?
Or not taste it?
Safe. I would think the people that could do that probably died first.
When I did my wild capture, I smelled them, and I knew which ones I wanted to throw out. I did 20 different vials of different stuff, and
maybe beer has a unstudied impact on human evolution.
Unstudied. I
think part of the problem is
I like his way of thinking.
The flavors that might have killed you. I don't know that you can taste botulism or botulism toxin.
It tastes like a stripper in the world.
It tastes like a Brett beer.
Right.
Okay, so you probably can't tell from like ABV or something like that.
Tastes like crotch yeast. You throw it out.
I would imagine that you could possibly do a gas chromatograph with a mass spectrometer and see some compound that is related to the botulism toxin. I imagine there's certain things. They have a way. I don't know. there's just so many nasty compounds that can occur from bacteria and from fermentation that won't kill you, but will make you sick or smell really bad. And I think those are more prevalent than something that will kill you in beer.
Yeah,
There's very few things that will kill you in beer.
They tell you not to drink it first, right?
Well,
if you're choking it down,
you bunch of alcoholics, I think you'll drink anything.
If it doesn't taste right, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the lady walking on this corner,
Keystone.
Your wife, your daughter, don't pick her up. Ooh, hit a chord.
I'm just hoping we can start having meetings so I can get some second opinions on what I've been brewing.
What are you brewing?
This is a meeting.
Well, I brewed a Quebec with a Hornindal Quebec, and it tasted. I pulled a recipe off the internet, and it called
Tastes like gas.
It called for no bittering hops, just dry hops. So we'll see how it goes.
How did your Hornindal turn out?
Well, it tasted good when I was putting it into the secondary, but I haven't I haven't bottled it yet, so I don't know.
So, but here's the Norwegian yeast. So here's the thing that we all need to come to grips with is that bittering is not what we thought it was, right? This whole IBU thing, I guess if you're making like a clean West Coast IPA and you're doing a lot of bittering additions, very simple, very straightforward, sure, bittering is a thing. But, a lot of beers today are made with maybe no bittering addition, lots of whirlpool or dry hop additions. And they can be fairly bitter. Bittering is a different concept than what we've been led to believe in IBU measurement. IBU measurement we should all just forget about unless we're doing something very straightforward and simple with just a bittering, a 60-minute addition and a plain beer. Once you start adding a lot of hops late, it radically changes the perception of bittering. It's different. It's different. We got to let go of that whole concept. The whole IBU thing is dead.
Is there any push? Is there any
Matt,
industry push to try to measure bitterness outside of IBUs in the traditional sense?
That's a good question. Certain things are bitter that have 0 IBUs, right? So there's foods that you've tasted, you're like, oh, that's bitter, right? I'm struggling here for examples. But there's certain fruits or vegetables.
Oranges have bitter orange, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Salted cockney.
Yeah. there's no IBU.
Calamondin. It's tart, right?
Crotch yeast is really bitter, so.
Right, take the pith of a grapefruit or an orange or something like that, and eat that. It's extremely bitter. It has 0 IBUs.
Yeah.
Why is it bitter? So IBUs was just something that somebody thought they could measure back in the day. They thought it was, relevant. This is like 100 years ago, and up until 15 years ago, we thought that was the measurement. And then we started to realize, well, in brewing, maybe that's no longer true. And so things have changed. But I'm with you. Maybe, so the part of it is the hop compounds have different bittering levels to them. Some are, maybe 60% of the bittering of the isomerized alpha acids. Some are 30%. Some are, And so, if you have twice as many of these, other, humulones and other compounds, the beer can seem way more bitter, but it has very little isomerized alpha acids. So your IBU reading is very low, but it seems more bitter. It's very difficult. I think we need to let go of that. You can still use it when it comes to very simple recipes where bittering is the major charge and there's nothing else, and you're throwing a quarter ounce in at the end on some lager. But if you're truly doing these modern beers where you're putting a ton of hops in late and less of the bittering, then ignore the whole IBU thing. It's false. I ranted about this, a year or more ago, that the IBU calculations are crap. They don't mean anything. Back in the day, you just pick whatever calculation works for you and just stick with it. And now, I think, don't pick any of them because they don't mean anything in today's beers.
Emil, that reminds me of another question. I've always thought or read that I'm going to missay the word cohumulone is a harsh component of hops, and someone recently told me that that's been proven false. It's just more efficiently isomerized, and therefore more bitter when you have high concentrations of it versus low concentrations. Is that true, or is it truly more harsh than?
No, it seems to be equivalent, but as you say, it isomerizes more easily than the adhumulone form.
Okay, so the harshness is not really a component of its compound, but the fact that it's more efficiently isomerized, you're getting more bitterness in the beer. That's very interesting. Because I've kind of steered clear of the
high cohumulone,
the CTZs and use the Warriors and the Horizons and the Magnum for that reason. But maybe is that factored into the IBU calculation, that the different proportions?
No. See, and that's where all this gets complicated, because you have the IBU as it's formally defined is a spectrophotometric test. They shine a light through the beer sample that's been, after you've added a solvent, done a solvent extraction, and you measure bitter stuff chemically by how much light is occluded during the test. Whereas, and then you get a absorption number and multiply that by 50, and that's your IBU. Whereas if you do HPLC and measure specifically the peak for isomerized alpha acid, and you can divvy them up between the cohumulone, the adhumulone, and the other one, which I forget what it is.
The big one.
Yeah, they, that's separate, and you can quantify that. Then there's the other compounds, the what are they called? The oxidized alpha acids, the humulinones, that are also bitter, and they're about 66% as bitter as the isoalpha. Those are perceived as bitter, and they're included in the IBU measurement, photometrically. But as Jamil says, as we go to different kinds of hopping and different ratios of these humulinones, the huminones, and the lupulones, that gets added up differently in the photometric test, and gets added up differently in the HPLC test.
So maybe we're not just ignorant of what's going on. I just think there's no model right now that can really accurately predict what your hop additions do.
Yeah.
So,
well, you can measure two beers that, we put it in front of a taste panel and ask them to rank it in terms of bitterness, say on 1 to 10, and you'll get different opinions from different people, and you can also get different measurements based on the compounds that are making up that bitterness. So yeah, I mean, Jamil's right. The basis on which we evaluated IBUs has changed, and the standard for how IBUs are measured, or what we consider to be 20 IBUs, has changed because different compounds are making up that number these days. And so 20 IBUs 50 years ago doesn't taste the same as 20 IBUs today, even though you're using the same test.
Yeah.
Do you think it's obsolete now?
I don't think it's obsolete. I think it just needs to be further defined.
Come on, John. Obsolete.
Okay.
Call it obsolete.
Shouldn't it just be
Call
based
them out.
on the way it tastes?
Well,
there's enough people in America that
No.
understand craft beer and they know what it tastes like.
But that's
so go with a generic volume.
No. But that's
my Honda is certified.
No,
all right, so this is a hoppier.
No. Well, that'd be great. But what John's
generic,
what John's speaking to is the ability to measure bitterness, right? We can, so
coming from a home brewer that brews, honestly, twice a year, it's great to have those benchmarks. But when somebody's actually experienced and is making beers,
sure.
and they know what it's going to taste like, they need that latitude to be like, hey, this is a hobby beer. This is not a hobby beer. This is a label. And what I'm with you. One of the things that confuses me as a home brewer and not so intelligent is breaking down numbers and trying to hit a BJCP classification when all I want to do is make a good beer. I want a beer that
you got a long way to go on that.
Right. I want to make a beer that I can share with friends. I want to make a beer that's going to taste good. I don't care if it's commercialized. I don't care if Jamil can steal my recipe like he's done and make a great beer.
Sell lots of it. Huh?
I want a ballpark, and I want, especially from the pros,
you gotta have balls.
And so here's my answer to that.
I want a ballpark of, hey, you're gonna be okay.
Well,
range.
Well, no,
here's my answer to that.
Flavor-wise and recipe-wise, the thing is, what we're talking about here is when we measure in a spectrophotometer IBUs.
Yeah,
what is the measure?
Broke down
what
in my
is the measure? I don't know what happened. Well, and the way that these formulas came about is like, okay, here's a way to predict what the IBUs will be. What we're saying is there's no real way to predict what the IBUs will be anymore with any of these formulas. It will not work. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends mainly on
how they're hopped.
But also
But dudes are looking for like garage stats.
Well, that
They
and
want
also
their beer to turn out
I will
close.
tell you one of the largest impacts on bittering is the strain of yeast used and the pitching rate of yeast. So you could take the same wort and you could pitch a different yeast into them, and one tastes so richly malty and like you put no hops into it, and one's just like, wow,
It's horrible.
how did you overhop this thing?
I grabbed
And and what was your water addition?
Nobody knows where they come
And and even with the same yeast, the amount of yeast you pitch will affect the bittering of the final beer. I'm telling you, one of the biggest things you can do is your choice of yeast strain, and that will affect your bittering substantially. If you've all ever had the chance, go down to White Labs San Diego, where they got a bar there where they pitch 8 different yeast into the same wort.
They have a bar.
And you will swear to God that they must have added crystal malt to this. They must have pitch, put far less hops into that. It's the yeast, the tacky, sticky surface of those yeast. The billions of yeast that are in there, billions and billions, as Carl Sagan would say, have taken some of those compounds out of the beer. They've stuck to them. It's part of the it's what affects fermentation. It's what results in a very malty beer, a malt forward yeast, a hoppy yeast. All that is, people disregard that aspect of it. And John and I, we talked about this a while ago when we were talking about IBU calculations, and I was like, there's no way you're ever going to have an accurate IBU calculation because it depends on the yeast that's being pitched. If we all used 001 all the time, okay, that's fine. The problem is it changes with every pitch of yeast. It changes with the vitality of the yeast, the quantity of the yeast. It changes with the starting gravity. It changes with the compounds that are in there. It changes with the fermentation temperature. Everything changes. You're never going to get an exact IBU off of a formula for fermentation. And now it's gotten even worse because we're not going with a 60-minute addition and that's it, or a 60-15. We're doing all that, and we're going to, whirlpool and dry hop only. And the whirlpool is below 175. There's no bittering addition whatsoever.
You actually get bittering down to 145. But if you talk to another experienced brewer and you tell them that this is this beer style, and it has, I've hopped it to 30 IBUs. Among brewers, that gives us a very good idea of the ballpark that it's in.
No. How did you measure that 30 IBUs?
Well, it could be, it could be spectrophotometrically, it could be simply software. But if you say, hey, here's an English special bitter, it's got 30 IBUs, and I brewed it this way, then we have a pretty good idea of how bitter it's going to be.
No. So it depends. If it's a simple beer, perhaps. But 99% of the brewers out there are not spectrophotometry,
savvy.
Analyzing. They're not analyzing their IBUs.
Right.
I can't. It's too expensive.
Exactly.
Right.
The vast majority of brewers out there
are simply calculating it.
Exactly. And they're all, which is fine. I mean, we can all just go off of as long as we're all agreeing, but we should all use one formula then. If we're all just agreeing that it's wrong, but we'll all just agree that this is correct.
It's our basis,
Is there any initiative to try to expand upon the calculations to include some of these, dry hops, whirlpool?
Shellhammer has looked at it, yeah.
And where are they on that? Have they come up with anything? And
it's going to be a total loss.
They've thrown one equation out there, but it needs more work.
So as what we're talking about here then is a difference between IBU as a brewer. If you know the IBUs and what you're drinking, that gives you a better understanding of the process versus IBU as a measurement doesn't really mean that much anymore.
No, IBU as a measurement still is it's valid data, but you have to temper that number with an understanding of how it was measured and the kind of beer that it was measured from.
Well,
all right. Think about it, especially from a home brewer perspective. You're taking these ballparks that you get from reading from experienced people like you and Jamil, and you gauge what your beer is going to turn out like. But I mean, honestly, from my beers, they're never dead on accurate. And
they won't be.
Whose problem is that?
It's not for them because that's the joy of homebrewing is I don't have to worry about what to take. I don't have to worry about it being the same. But what I like is, oh, what do we got here?
Hold on.
Who's that dog? Whose dog is that? Let's do that again.
That's Michael Schott's wife.
But hold on. Here's the thing. John's 100% right. He is correct that IBU means IBU. It is a measurement, right, of isomerized alpha acids in a liquid. There's a standard for it. It is 100% correct every time. If the operator, if the person at the lab is doing the measurement correctly, the IBUs are 100% correct. There's no debating that. It is a scientific fact. And it's been, when did they come up with IBUs? 1960, 1950?
55, 53 actually, 53.
There you go.
And
So-
J. Edgar Hoover still.
So it is correct. I mean, if anything, it's more correct today in our ability to measure it correctly. The argument becomes, well, is that actually what we are tasting?
Right.
So there are other factors, other flavors, other sensory perceptions that change whether something is really intensely bitter. You could have a 80 IBU beer that isn't intensely bitter, isn't sharp and hurtful.
Right.
We do that on our beers purposefully. It has to do with the water additions, the mineral compounds that John has also addressed, right? So IBUs, mineral character, all that, that has one aspect of it. But you can get rid of all those. You can drive the IBUs down to 20 or 15, and it can taste bitingly bitter. You can raise it up to 80, 90, and it tastes really smooth and malty. So my argument is IBUs are not the measurement we should be focused on. And people keep talking about IBUs. I'm telling you, IBUs are not what we should relate to today. And I think we need maybe we need a shell hammer, an SBU or something.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But what I'm telling you is very difficult because there's so many factors like we were talking about earlier. You could get the pith of a grapefruit and it's very bitter, or there's a lot of other compounds that are very bitter, like Matt's socks, that are just nasty and bitter.
And my jogging shorts.
Yeah. Or his ex-wife. Yeah.
It's factor of 10, more bitter. It has nothing to do with IBUs. It has nothing to do with hops. Why does somebody perceive something as bitter? And what we're looking for is the perception of bittering, not some measure of bittering. It's what the drinker, the consumer, the beer aficionado tastes at that point. How do we measure that? And I think that is so complex that is very difficult. And I think the simplification back in 1953 of IBUs are bitter is completely wrong, especially today. And so that's my rant.
I agree with you, Jamil. I mean, what we were measuring 50 years ago, because all the beers were prepared the same way, we had a common basis for comparison of the IBU, and it made sense. Today, we're bittering very differently, different varieties of hops versus what we had back then.
Different yeasts, everything.
Yeah,
everybody used one yeast back then.
Oh yeah,
right.
Everybody used 3470.
It came from my mom.
You're right. We need a new measurement, a new test that has more commonality, a broader basis for today's beer. Something that we can point to a measurement and that'll taste, 20 SBUs to this person and 20 SBUs to that person, and they can agree that is what it tastes like.
But
So we don't know what the method would be. What would you want to measure?
So I have to keep talking so I can push this guy out. You guys cater mostly to the home brewers. So how do you make that work for us? Because honestly, we want to make good beers. And we may not want to go pro, but we have the flexibility to change from, day to day.
Well, here I can answer that.
I know that, if I add so many hops to
John's going to answer that for you.
It turns into a shit show, but I want to make a good beer. And I rely on you and Jamil to give us like the basic guidelines, right? So how do we accomplish that?
John's got
okay. We know what the basic bittering compounds in hops are. You have your isohumulones, you have your humulinones, and your lupulones. Those three. Now, if we start measuring those with a test that can determine exactly how much of each of those is in the beer, and balance that against the residual sugars of the beer, then we can come up with a test that will fully describe the bitterness profile of that beer. Then the next step of that would be to come up with a predictive equation that the homebrewer could use. And that would have to go back to the hop suppliers to measure all these things on the hops that they sell you.
Oh my God,
I mean,
John, you're 100% wrong. I can't take how wrong you are.
Little kid who wanted to do that.
No. Hey,
that's how you do it. Is it worth doing? No.
Well, this from a guy who's making his own swords in his backyard. I don't know. John is my beloved friend. He was so smart. And so, he would go through this process to produce a formula that you all could somehow use. It may be a little bit longer than it's going to take to have a vaccine for the COVID. Maybe 10 or 20 years past when that would happen. However, he's not wrong. I'm telling you, he's not wrong. He's brilliant. However, here's the thing you do as a home brewer. You don't rely on us feeding you like baby formula, some recipe that is going to turn out perfect every time.
Oh, stop! No, I need that.
We are going to give you the knowledge, the intelligence to here's the techniques, the skills, the ability to properly prepare your wort, whether it be water, malt selection, equipment selection, temperatures, all that, versus and pitching yeast, so yeast selection, and every step of the way. But at the end, once this beer is done, what you need to do is say to yourself, oh, I don't think that's bitter enough. Okay, so then we've told you how a beer is bitter. We've told you could do it in the bittering edition, you can do it in the whirlpool, you can do it in dry hopping. Here's the kind of bittering you get from it. And then it's up to you to say, I want more bittering this way or that way. Or it's too bitter, I want it to be more malty. We are teaching you all the shit you need to know in order to make the beer exactly the way you want. You can't rely on John and I and everybody else to give you,
hand it to you. Yeah.
Based on God knows how many different equipment setups and yeast pitching formulas.
No, it's bullshit. I expect a ballpark.
Will be perfect.
A ballpark.
We give you a ballpark. I'll give you my ballpark.
I want a ballpark.
I'm just saying, John's not wrong, and I'm just saying. But here's the thing. We've given you
a specific temperature.
John and I have spent the last 16 fucking years giving you information that you should be able to use if you listen to a goddamn podcast. That would
So
Let's pivot. Let's pivot. I have a question that Matt and I discussed after last week's call about the future of beer and the future of traditional beer. So beer as we know it, at least from, now in past years, going forward with all of the, new methods of brewing, does the old traditional beers, do they go away? Right? I mean,
no.
In 20 or 30 years, is somebody going to open up a book and say, oh, look, we can add hops early and it gives us this bitterness.
No.
Oh my God, this is science,
No. Are we brewing Goza? Are we brewing, Pito Gravitsky? We're brewing, all sorts of
Berliners.
shit that happened, how many years ago? No. There will be people, 100, 500 years from now going like, ooh, look at this New England IPA thing that happened. Look at this West Coast IPA thing that happened. Look at this hard seltzer thing. And people, 500
Goes
years
around,
from
comes
now
around, yeah.
are going to be revitalizing hard seltzer. So
Hard seltzer.
So I think to expand on what David asked, if you look at the hip beer scene, it's either intense fruits or fruit flavor from hops, low bitterness, beer that doesn't taste like traditional beer. So are we raising a craft beer community where they think that's what it is, and they don't really get an acquired taste for traditional beer? That's something I worry about.
No. What's happening is the millennial market, and you look very young. You must be 21, 22.
I'm 43 years old. Thank you very much.
You must be 22, 23.
Yeah, that dude starred in The Mummy opposite Brandon Fraser. Let's just keep going.
you must be at least 60. No. But here's the thing, the marketplace as it is with a completely different demographic that was raised on juice boxes and chicken fingers, they have a different flavor profile than old son of a bitches like me. And so they like a sweet, they like Sour Patch gummies, they like all that sort of thing.
They like Tide Pods.
And Tide Pods, exactly. That's where I'm doing a Tide Pod beer. I don't know if you know this. It's going to be a Tide Pod Pod. It's coming out. You should line up and order it now, and you should drive out from Texas to enjoy your 1 6-pack for $40. It's okay. People get upset about this, but it's okay. The music that you guys like, think back to what your parents liked, think back to what your kids like. It's different. It's changed. Does that mean the music that, one generation likes over another is wrong? No.
Yeah,
it's what
it
they like. So,
What do you mean, you people?
y'all drinkers in Texas or elsewhere. No, but that's the thing. It's not wrong. And I've said this over and over again. You are never wrong in what you like. If you happen to like Keystone and you
that's wrong.
You somehow found your way into this meeting, even though we all hate you, that's fine. But it's okay. You cannot fault somebody for what they like. And if somebody likes to, some sugary, boozy, can of crap,
bougie.
I determine it's can of crap to me, but it's not a can of crap to them. You cannot be, it's just like you cannot fault somebody for the person they love. I may not like your wife, but I love my wife.
I may not like my wife either.
You may hate my wife, but that's okay. It has nothing to do with the mass opinion is not, correct or incorrect. The individual is always correct as to what they love and what they hate. That's the right of an individual in at least this United States and hopefully in the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
But isn't there also a resurgence in like the lagers and like especially pilsners and things like that? So isn't that kind of going back to a little bit of old school, even with all the sweet beers that are coming out?
Yeah, I think that you'll continue to see that sort of thing. I mean, good beer is going to be embraced. Different styles will come and grow, but there will be people that appreciate all these different beers. There are certain beer styles that I really don't care for, but many people do, and I think you're going to continue to see variety persist in beer. It's not going to go totally fruity, hazy, sweet. Even though that is what today's generation predominantly likes, there will still be people in that group that appreciate a light lager or appreciate a West Coast IPA or a Rogan beer, for example. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with that either. You can
Right.
like any beer you want. If you like Bud Light and it's your greatest drink in the world, God bless you. You are not wrong. You can be right about anything you love. If you hate beer and you love
wine,
seltzer,
No, seltzer is wrong. Sorry.
whatever you love, you're not wrong. Every individual should be respected for what they like, what they don't like. It's not up to me to tell you what you like to drink or what you hate to drink. You shouldn't feel bad about whatever you love and what you hate. You should be proud of what it is. It's like I was talking last week about don't judge something as a 25 all the time or on Untapped as a 2.5. For God's sakes, if you hate it, make it a 1. If you love it, make it a 5. Fuck all the other numbers in between. You should just be bold and proud of what you love. Believe in yourself. Not in all the bullshit that anybody else is saying. All the other internet crap. Who cares about that? Just believe in yourself. That's the only person you need to believe in. Maybe your wife, maybe your kids, but believe in yourself and your respect for your own feelings. 100%. That's what's most important.
Okay. I've got to sign off, guys. It's been a pleasure talking with y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
John, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. See you next week.
So can we all just admit that one of the biggest problems that everyone just needs to uninstall Untapped?
Wait, what?
Sure.
It has its uses. It has its uses.
Travis would lose his fucking mind.
Gotta get that tape, man.
10 million check-ins now.
Yeah. When I'm lost and I need to find my bearings, it works. Honestly.
I thought you called your nuts your bearings.
No. Those are my 2 balls in bed. But at times when I'm like, okay, I have nowhere to go, I have nothing to do. I'm in Houston. I've never been to Houston before. So I'll go to Untapped and I'll be like, hey, give me a good, starting point. That's what it's good for. If I'm in Denver, I've never even looked at Untapped in Denver because there's no point.
Are you saying Houston beer is unknown?
No. The last time
outside of Houston, it is.
Yeah. The last time I was in Houston, I got mistaken for a pilot. The bartenders thought I was a pilot, and I said, no, I'm a drunk. And she's like, no, you look like a pilot. And I was like, no, I just drink too much. And that got me through an entire night with no charge. I had paid nothing. She thought I was a pilot. I told her, no, I'm just a drunk. That's what Houston did for me. And there was a gator floating in an alley somewhere, just dead, tits up in an alley. A real alligator.
Yeah, we've been full of things that are displaced from Louisiana ever since the hurricane.
No, it was ridiculous.
I resemble that remark.
Travis! Where's he at? Where's Travis?
He's displaced from Louisiana to Houston.
No, went to Houston, told the bartender, no, we're just here to have a couple beers because we had stamina and we hung out. They thought we were pilots. We're like, no, we're not pilots. We don't care. We just don't want to pay for our beers, right? Because they were offering a discount.
Why does Travis struggle to point the camera at himself?
I think he's probably touching his wiener.
It'd be much lower then.
The end result
Louisiana.
the end result was I almost had a baby and a new stepmom. I don't know how it worked out, but it was a mess. It was worse than a weekend in Vegas.
What the hell are we looking at now?
So I got a question for you guys. I'm actually about to change my process. And one of the things I was concerned about is I run a RIMS tube right now. And so I have to constantly flow the mash work. And I'm worried about hot side aeration. I was reading that I shouldn't worry about it. And I was also reading
bullshit.
I shouldn't worry about it. So
Yep, it's bullshit.
So
is it bullshit?
Here's the thing about hot side aeration is it actually exists. Hot side aeration can be a problem, but one of the things yeast has the capability of doing is processing the oxidized sugars and maltose and all that off of the sugars that are around them and turning them back into non-oxidized. So a good, healthy ferment will correct any issues with hot side aeration. So I would refer you to Charlie Bamforth, who will mention a number of studies on this. So hot side aeration exists, but once you ferment well, it clears up. So if you're ever doing a barrel-aged beer, if you pitch something like Brett, it will continue. I've had beer in barrels that turned brown because we forgot to put the Brett in them. And I've had the Brett and it turned back to bright. So it will reverse oxidation. And so hot side aeration is the same. Good, healthy ferment corrects all. So don't worry about hot side aeration. Just the most important thing you should ever focus on is fermentation.
Right. You sit the blend, your yeast will fix everything. Right?
That help?
Those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I hot side aerate all of my brews because the way my system's set up. But I pay attention to a good fermentation. I pitch plenty of yeast because I steal it from this guy. It always works out.
My kind of thought has always been like, if your process is so tight that that's the last thing you have to worry about, then go for it. But is it going to be a 2% difference in your beer? Maybe. Is it going to be that noticeable? I just don't think it is. But if your process is already that tight and it makes you feel better, go for it.
No, I agree with you. It's your process should be fermentation. I don't know what else.
Fermentation.
Wait,
But with that said, like anytime I see someone, anytime I see someone like open up their mash tun and they just have like a free flow there, I'm like, man, I don't know. Can you just not afford a little bit of tubing, just a little, just to get down to your kettle? Like you're going through all this effort and you're just like free flowing there. Come on, man.
Yeah, but if you look at the claw hammer system, right, that has that sprayer in the lid, I mean, it's continually aerating their water.
Well, that's what brought this whole thing up. So I saw somebody put a clean in place ball as their sparge arm basically, and I'm spraying things everywhere, and I'm like, that's
sparge arm.
I don't know what the heck they were trying to do there, but it's spraying everything.
I
So
don't think I'd worry about it. If you look at the, like I said, Clawhammer or the Warthog system coming out of
I mean, think about how the grandfather
they just
does their
spray.
sparge.
I mean, they literally spray this stuff. It gets aerated like insanely during the
yeah,
refrigeration.
but I mean the difference between the Grainfather and like the thing that I saw with the clean in place ball is the Grainfather it runs it across a plate, so you're not really spraying the
well,
wort.
you pick up like the basket, so you're like the wort is just falling through the air as it falls down to meet the rest of the wort at the bottom of the kettle.
If you ever go to brew at a professional brewery, you'll realize that HSA doesn't really mean much.
Okay.
Again, if your process is so tight, that's the last thing you have to worry about.
Yeah.
Worry about it.
Well, my
Makes you feel
process
better.
sucks, but I'll drink it anyway.
I'll tell you the thing that actually matters more than hot side aeration is the actual total thermal load that goes into a beer.
Big load.
Thermal loading is a huge effect on staling down the road. So staling is one of the things that commercial brewers are looking at. And one of the reasons they looked at hot side aeration is like, well, anything that produces sterols, anything that produces too much fatty acids, all this stuff can be an issue on, the total, staling that's going to happen down the road. And they realized that some of this stuff doesn't matter, some of this stuff does matter. And one of the things they recently discovered, I mean, recently being within the last 10, 20 years, is the actual total heat load in a beer. So the total heat load in a beer is defined as the amount of heat that was added to malting, the amount of heat that was added to mashing, the amount of heat that was added to lautering, the amount of heat that was added to boiling. That's your total heat load.
That's a shit ton of heat.
The higher the heat load, the more quickly the beer stales.
Really?
So you have to be careful. One of the things that I think is kind of a misnomer in this is when it comes to roasted malts. But one of the things I can tell you for sure is you have a lot of carable malts, a lot of highly kiln malts that were not roasted, that didn't turn into charcoal. There's something that happens to those proteins, those sugars, those starches that becomes a staling product later on in the beer very quickly. And this is what they're talking about when they talk about the total heat load. Again, this is another thing from Vinny at Russian River. He told me, this is the thing that he was focused on was this total load of heat-related staling. So what it means to a brewer is be careful about your malt selection. Be careful about things like doing a decoction mash.
Oh.
Be careful about.
Oh Lord.
Hey. Be careful about
total horseshit.
how aggressively you boil your wort. So people, and I've talked about this in the past about on the shows, is I've seen people just boil the holy living shit out of their wort. Where it's leaping a foot out of the pot. It's like, look, you just need to kind of simmer this wort.
The chicken
It shouldn't be, this insane boiling. This insane boiling is adding heat load to the wort.
Right.
You're adding to the heat staling potential of the entire thing. So you have to be very careful about that. So there's a few papers out there. If you look at the, I don't know, I've been drinking a lot, but it's the heat. It's the, I said it earlier, and now I can't remember. But if you look into that, you will see that you need to be careful when you're firing up that burner. You maybe ratchet back a little bit. In general, what it means is the longevity of beer. if you're going to drink that beer in a week, because I know you're all alcoholics, I can see that on your faces.
Bullshit.
But if you're going to drink that beer, a couple of months down the road, you need to be careful of that. If you're going to enter a competition like the NHC, where you submit your beers in, and then months down the road you submit the beers again and all that, you need to be careful of this. If you're going to drink the beer in a few weeks, who gives a shit? So again, it's all proportional. Don't freak out about it, but you should be worried more about that than you are hot side aeration. So I hope this 20-minute dissertation on why I'm sorry. You guys get me all passionate about what I'm saying.
I love it.
No, it's great. It's great.
So
I think I waited that long just to ask a question.
So while we're talking about poor malt choices and boiling the hell out of them, let's welcome semi-famous local celebrity and semi-professional brewer, Mr. James Carlisle, to the chat room. What's going on, brother?
Hey, James!
What's up? What's going on, guys?
Nobody said he had that much hair. I'm out.
Yeah.
He's got the coat. He's got the
barber
coat.
this since quarantine. So
Where do you work this week?
where do I work this week? How's everyone doing?
Good.
Pretty good. Tell us about how things are going at Ingenious.
I can't hear you, Daryl. You cut off.
Tell us a little bit about how things are going at Ingenious.
Actually, pretty freaking well. Surprisingly, besides running out of crowlers a couple of weeks ago, and having to switch over to the old Boston Round little brown plastic PET bottles. But we had a $7,000 sales day last Thursday, and no one's allowed to come into our tap room. So that was dynamite. Hop Drop is doing well for us. I think Gold got some beer from Hop Drop from last week. So that's done well. Other than that, I'm brewing at probably about 50% of what I would normally brew. And then on top of that, we're changing a lot of what we brew. Apparently, when everyone's in quarantine, everyone wants to drink really high alcohol, high ABV beers. So we've been putting out nothing but like 14%. All of our barrel aged stuff is starting to slowly kind of come out, but it's been fucking nuts, man. So
Actually, I think there is a select set of businesses, and I can only speak for Texas and Harris County, but like I was at the craft beer cellar down here in Cypress yesterday filling up some growlers, and he said his April over April is significantly better because people are coming in there picking up stuff and taking it back home.
Yeah, so like what we've noticed is obviously people have nowhere to go to drink beer collectively. They can't go hit a brewery. Luckily for us, we have even down south, but up north we have a really big following. So we're able to release things that we weren't even planning on releasing. And people just rush in to buy them as soon as we pop them out.
I've been trying to.
Whether it be one of our fruited sours or pastry stouts or hell, I even just put out a Mexican lager. I think David Rogers should come by and pick that guy up.
Send it over, brother. Send it over.
Sir, where are you? Where are you?
Who's asking?
No, this is Robert. Where are you?
I'm looking around all this. Okay. I'm at a Genius. Yeah. No. I'm in Genius Brewing Company. We are upside down. We are in Humble. So we're off 59 directly across the street from George Bush. Right now we're running pickup only. So people call in their orders, tell us what they want, and our taproom staff gets it ready and packs it up nice and neat, whether it's crowlers or 4-packs or whatever it is. And when you pull up, you call us up, and we have numbered parking spots outside. Hey, I'm in parking spot number 3. Okay, cool. So then we grab your stuff, run out there with a iPad, and you sign for it, pay for it, and you're off.
Sounds good.
So, James, just because it hasn't been covered a whole lot in these rooms, what kind of conversations are you having with some of your peers at other breweries in terms of how things are going?
Dude, it's like completely flip-flopped. So you've got a really good friend of mine. I know most of y'all probably already know Robbie Cummins from Brash. Started a whole Facebook group just to be able to socialize with his Shotgun Fridays. Me personally, I try to find the breweries that are like on my way home that are still doing beer to goes, and go at least and drop $50, buy a case of beer or whatever. No matter who they are, just go and do that. But a lot of breweries are still trying to get to the point where they actually are able to be, where they're actually going to be able to be open in like the next month or two. A lot of breweries, I think Buffalo Bayou, opened up today with their restaurant. Me personally, I probably won't go to any restaurant like that, but I'll swing by and do curbside like St. Arnold's or Sigma or whatever the case may be. But other than that, I'm gonna hold off for a few weeks.
I think we lost Jamil.
Yeah, he went frozen there.
Yeah.
No, he's looking at porn.
Just got to go ahead and just take off my camera real quick. Just knock this out. Hold on. Be right back.
No, we're here. I was just sending a message to all of you that, I got to probably call it quits. I'm down to 8% battery power and taking my charger out to the garage. The wife's pulling up.
I just saw that.
A private message with a picture of my junk.
Please say hi to Liz without your junk in the picture.
Well, we've all seen it before, so what does it matter?
I've given up on things a million times.
It's
apparently there's a white spot on it. That's what I picked up from Brew Strong, is that there's a white spot. That's all I got.
A tiny little white spot. That's me. That's my junk. It's a little acorn that the squirrel would steal. That's it. That's how you know it's me. That's my verification video. It's a tiny, tiny little acorn.
Well, Jamil,
thanks for joining us again, Jamil.
Yeah, man. Thank
Thank you very much, sir.
I had fun.
Have a good night. We'll do it again next week if you're around.
You have a standing invitation for a Friday meeting, so make sure Travis gets you there.
As long as my best friend Travis reminds me once a week to join in, and I will.
Awesome.
Hey, two best friends. It's Travis and it's
We're supposed to start trying to tell him that we're going to make sure he has a hotel room next time we have op firm here in Houston, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh yeah, he won't even show up unless there's a hotel room.
Nah, he doesn't work for Russian River.
Is that what happened? Oh, come on. Dish some dirt, man.
We can talk about your collab.
No dirt. Mute everyone.
Harold, we have to negotiate here. I want to hear about that collab that went bad.
What collab?
Jamil brought it up last week. There was a collab that.
Oh yeah, I want to hear about that too.
I didn't want to hear about the who it was. I just want to hear
I want to know who it was. I want the
You're
dirt.
nosy as fuck. So.
But I'll tell you, I ain't flying anywhere that they don't like to pay up for. My old janky ass can't get on a plane for 15 hours if you're not like putting me in business class. So it's just the reality of it. I'm old, I'm weak, I'm feeble. It's like I said last week. Travis can tell you what a delicate flower I am. So
I'll pick you up.
That's just the way it goes. I can't do more than that. But I just had to cancel my flights out to Houston because the Homebrewers Conference. I was going to fly out. Travis and I were going to drive around with James, and we were going to drive around, see y'all, and head out to the conference, but didn't happen. So next year, maybe, I'll fly out to Houston. We'll drive to San Diego for the conference, yes? I think we need a caravan of like 30 cars. Going to various breweries.
We got this on tape.
I will demand that they give us free beer at every brewery. Eh? Come on.
Some big bucks.
I'm in.
Let's
do it. So with the Vinny thing, they actually opened their new brewery the day of OpFirm, so he had to back out. That's why
sure.
he actually had to say, no, I can't make it. Understandable.
Vinny is a wonderful person.
One of our members actually delivered his brew house from Germany, Sasha,
Sasha, you on the call?
Sasha's on the call.
Sasha was on a minute ago. I see him.
I love Vinny.
I sent Vinny a message actually this week. So, Jamil, if you have some insight, with Vinny, get him on next week. I sent him a message already.
We're trying to get Vinny on next week.
Well, copy me on it, and I will bug him about it. You got my email, don't you?
What if you'll cancel it next week? Our guests are going to be the people from Homebrew Talk.
Do you not have my email? Can you spell my last name?
Yeah.
It's confusing.
I've got your book.
Can you put it? Yeah, right. You look to the book. Last name with a J in front of it at gmail.com.
Easy enough.
There's a Z and an N, probably an F.
We're about to get spammed with a bunch of porn.
Jamel at heretickbrewing.com.
Congratulations, you signed up for cat packs.
I'll copy you in the email. I'll copy you the email to Vinny.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll reach out to Vinny. Copy me on it, or anybody else you want. I know a lot of people. I don't know everybody, but I know a lot. That is sexy dark right there.
we love the surprises. So if you can, just say I'm going to pull this person in today.
Well, there you go.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I got Palmer in today. I didn't get Chris White, but if you email me suggestions, and I will pre-do it. I think a lot of these guys are, when I hit them up at the minute, they're kind of like, well, I'm busy or whatever, or But hit me up with your suggestions as to who you want, and I will reach out to the people I do know. I don't know everybody, but I know a fair number of them.
Well, I've tried to get some local brewers to come in, and James has been the only one to heed my call here.
Yeah, they're far too important to be part of your homebrew shenanigans.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I can get Wicked Boxer in on it.
I mean, to Carlisle's credit, like a lot of us learned how to brew from him. So he used to work at the homebrew store. Well, he worked at the homebrew store, so he was a lot of our influences, at least, and our guidance, if you will.
And he can't be bothered to be part of the meeting now.
He was part of the meeting. That was the dude with
never
the
shows up to meetings
the
anymore.
goatee beard. There's the goat beard. Yeah, I had to find him. He's still there.
He's on mute, so we can't hear him. That's good.
Y'all look like drunken fools to me, but
my son was like,
when I look in the mirror, I see exactly the same thing. So there you go.
And I think
there went
there he went. There's his battery.
There went the battery.
Whoa.
Yeah, I bought a stand and a special cable just to do these things off my phone.
Did you really?
Yeah. I mean, it cost me all of $20. It wasn't expensive, but
You can just
So
figure out
Matt,
some of
2
that
weeks get
stainless
all his
behind
medals
you. To,
lined
like,
up so we
work
can all
it.
see him behind him.
So for the record, I just want to point out that anyone that gets a screenshot of this conversation could put any caption they ever wanted to put on it. And it'll be like, look at all these white men conspiring against the world.
I don't know. It's been pretty.
I don't miss your voice.
Trust me, I don't like it that much either, but I'm stuck with what I was given.
so next week we all show up with blackface paint on. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, my God.
David, no.
What was your point?
It was supposed to stop right then and there. It wasn't supposed to go any deeper. We were just scratching the surface of it. We were going to move on down the road.
So anybody, while Jamil's out, any suggestions for next week? What on bite? I mean, Denny would be awesome, but
We're not doing ourselves any favors since we have Jim cooking here next week.
We can
I mean,
try.
Vinny would be cool. I'd like to see local breweries. I mean, let's support local.
Carlisle, did you get my email that had all the stuff in it, or
Westmont for Charger?
No, didn't.
He's fathering.
Yeah. So I tried, but it'd be good to get
Marshall
Brock.
from Brulosophy.
We get Brock in. That'd be cool.
I'll message Brock. I'll see if he'll come. Not that I have any pull with Brock, but he knows my name anyway.
Send the note to Sasha, and he can include him in this email that he's sending to Vinny and.
I just feel like you guys are being big time dicks to Carlisle, who has actually joined us. Like, who can we get next week? Carlisle's like right on here right now.
Right now, so you better send me the message.
Can we get anybody?
Carlisle knows we love him.
Carlisle?
I don't know anyone.
Hey, Carlisle, that whenever you pop that one shotgun with your thumb, the look on your face was priceless.
Yeah. Oh shit!
It happened. It's kind of like the first time you rubbed one out. What was that?
No, I know that feeling. Yeah, I have my wife standing here next to me right now too, so I have to be somewhat.
If you're gonna pop up, you got to be drinking.
Yeah, you aren't drinking. Yeah, but I could easily probably get like the guys from like Pizza Boy or Marcus if y'all want to do like Texas. I can get Baskerville from Weathered Souls on the chat. Turning Point, all those guys.
I mean, it'd be great to just be a fly on the wall, having all you guys talking about COVID and brewing and just watching it.
And then have Chris Decker over there just throwing out Lodo.
Yeah, that's right.
My bad. I can't hear Harold behind all those fucking ribbons he has on the wall. So
that's because his face keeps melting into it.
Thank God, God, now I can't remember his name. Our Lodo guy who was preaching about it.
It's either Berlin
or
Berlin. Thank God Berlin wasn't on the call today. Shit, he would have had a heyday.
Oh, he loves Palmer, so he was upset he couldn't make it. I was trying to get him in here. What's that? How to brew? Yeah,
Did you get your book signed?
You just missed him though. I mean, right when you came.
No. Y'all roped me in. Fuck Jamil. I've talked to him 100 times. But y'all said John was in.
He was.
Yeah, like whenever I sent you that, like John wasn't, and then like you showed up, and John's like, "All right, I'm out," and I was like, "Shit, my bad."
That's because he believes in brewing beer to style, unlike some people in this room.
I love the argument they were getting. It was like we're a live, personal Brew Strong episode. it was really cool to watch.
He burned the shit out of me halfway to that argument. Like, this is for everyone in this room that doesn't drink a fucking Keystone.
That's right.
Oh, Daryl, to be fair, you're the butt of all of our jokes, so.
I mean, I serve my purpose.
You do. You do it well, too. We appreciate it. With a smile at that.
So, anyways.
Hey, I gave away a damn $3,000